Welcome to Lotus Whisper, Zen Tales for Sleep. Tonight, we will walk a gentle path together, a path that leads to the quiet healing of the heart. We will explore ancient stories, soft as moonlight, that were created to soothe emotional wounds and bring a sense of deep clarity to the mind. These are tales of letting go, of understanding, and of finding peace in the midst of life's storms. Each story is a quiet invitation to release the burdens you may be carrying, to breathe a little deeper, and to allow your mind to settle like calm water. Let these words be a gentle balm for your spirit, guiding you softly from the worries of the day toward a place of stillness and restful sleep. Please subscribe to the channel to hear more stories like this. The Mustard Seed and the Universal Heart. The story we begin with tonight is one of a heart broken open by sorrow, and of the gentle medicine that was offered not to erase the pain, but to transform it. It is the story of a young woman named Kisa Gotami, and it begins, as so many stories do, with a simple, profound love. In a small village nestled among rice paddies that shimmered like green glass under the sun, Kisa Gotami lived a life that felt as bright and full as a summer sky. The source of this light was her son, her first and only child. From the moment he was born, he was the center of her world, the quiet music to which her heart danced. She would watch him sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling with a rhythm that seemed to be the rhythm of life itself. She would trace the delicate curve of his ear, marvel at the perfection of his small hands, and feel a love so vast it seemed to have no beginning and no end. Her days were filled with the simple, sacred tasks of motherhood, the gentle rocking, the soft lullabies, the warmth of his small body against hers. For Kisa Gotami, this was not just happiness, it was the very meaning of her existence. The world outside, with its worries and its shadows, seemed distant and unreal. Her world was small, safe, and illuminated by the presence of her child. Then, one day, the sky of her world turned to gray. A sudden fever, swift and merciless, came upon her son. The village healer tried his remedies, whispering incantations and offering bitter herbs, but the fever would not yield. Kisa Gotami held her child, her body a shield against the illness, her heart a frantic prayer. But the light in his eyes began to fade, his breath grew shallow, and then, with a final, quiet sigh, it stopped. The silence that followed was a sound more terrible than any scream. In that moment, the world Kisa Gotami had known shattered into a million pieces. But her mind could not accept it. She could not see the truth that lay still and silent in her arms. To her, he was not gone. He was merely sick. He was sleeping a deep, unnatural sleep, and she, his mother, had to find the medicine to wake him. Clutching the small, lifeless body to her chest, she ran from her home. Her hair was undone, her feet were bare, and her eyes were wide with a grief so powerful it had become a kind of madness. She went from door to door, a desperate shadow against the sunlit walls of the village. "Medicine!" she would cry, her voice raw and pleading. "Please, give me medicine for my son. He is sick, can you not see? He will not wake." Her neighbors looked at her with eyes full of pity and sorrow. They knew the truth. They saw the unmistakable stillness of death. "Dear Kisa Gotami," one old woman said, her voice trembling with compassion, "there is no medicine for this. You must accept." But Kisa Gotami would not listen. She would shake her head, a wild and frantic motion, and run to the next house, and the next. The villagers whispered among themselves, their hearts aching for her. They saw a woman lost in the labyrinth of her own sorrow, a mother whose love was so strong it refused to see the end of life. She was a walking wound, a testament to the unbearable pain of loss, and no one knew how to reach her. Days turned into a blur of frantic searching. The sun beat down on her, but she did not feel its heat. The cool of the evening fell, but she did not feel the chill. Her only reality was the weight of her child in her arms and the single, burning thought in her mind: there must be a cure. Finally, a wise old man, seeing the depth of her despair, took her gently by the arm. "I know of no medicine that can help you," he said, his voice soft as moss. "But there is a man, a great physician of the soul, who may know. He is called the Buddha. He is staying in the grove just beyond the village. Go to him. Perhaps he has what you seek." A flicker of hope, sharp and painful, ignited in Kisa Gotami's heart. The Buddha, the enlightened one. If anyone in the world had the power to heal her son, it would be him. With renewed purpose, she left the village and made her way toward the cool shade of the Jetavana grove. The path was dusty, and stones cut at her bare feet, but she felt nothing. She moved through the world like a ghost, seeing only the destination ahead. As she drew closer, a profound stillness seemed to emanate from the trees, a quiet that was deeper than mere silence. Beneath a large Bodhi tree, a man was sitting. He was surrounded by a small gathering of people, but his presence was the center of the calm, like the still point of a spinning wheel. His eyes were clear and deep, and as Kisa Gotami stumbled forward and fell at his feet, they rested upon her with a compassion so vast it seemed to hold all the suffering of the world. "Lord," she wept, laying her son before him, "they say you are a great physician. My son is sick. Please, I beg you, give me the medicine that will cure him." The Buddha looked at her, his gaze holding no judgment, only a deep and knowing tenderness. He looked at the child, still and pale, and then back at Mother, her body trembling with a grief that was a storm. He did not offer empty words of comfort. He did not tell her that her son was gone. He knew that her mind was not ready for such a truth. Instead, he met her where she was, in her desperate search for a cure. "I can help you," he said, and his voice was calm and clear, like a bell ringing in the quiet air. "But to make the medicine, I require a special ingredient. I need you to bring me a single mustard seed." Kisa Gotami's eyes widened. A mustard seed? It was such a simple thing. Every house in the village had mustard seeds. Hope surged through her, a powerful tide. "Yes, Lord, I will bring it at once," she exclaimed, ready to run back the way she came. But the Buddha held up a hand, gently halting her. "There is one condition," he continued, his voice still perfectly even. "The mustard seed must come from a house where no one has ever died. Not a child, not a parent, not a husband or a wife, not even a servant. Go now, find me such a seed, and I will restore your son." The task seemed so simple, so attainable. A single mustard seed from a house untouched by death. With the Buddha's promise echoing in her heart, Kisa Gotami turned and ran back towards the village, her spirit lifted from the depths of despair. She felt a surge of energy, a belief that this strange but simple quest would be the key to her salvation. She arrived at the first house on the edge of the village, a large, prosperous home with a well-tended garden. She knocked on the carved wooden door, her knuckles rapping with a frantic urgency. A woman with kind eyes answered. "A mustard seed," the woman said with a warm smile. "Of course, we have plenty. Come in, come in." Kisa Gotami's heart leaped. It was so easy. As the woman turned to fetch a small clay pot, Kisa Gotami remembered the condition. "Wait," she said, her voice catching in her throat. "Before you give it to me, has anyone in this house ever died? A father, a mother, a child?" The woman's smile faded. A shadow of memory passed over her face. She looked down at her hands and said softly, "My dear, only last year we lost our beloved father. He was old and his time had come, but the house still feels his absence." A knot of disappointment tightened in Kisa Gotami's chest. She thanked the woman and hurried away, the small body of her son feeling a little heavier in her arms. She went to the next house, a more modest dwelling where children were playing in the dust. A young man came to the door. He was happy to give her a mustard seed, but when she asked her question, his face grew solemn. "My wife," he whispered, his eyes looking toward the horizon. "The fever took her 2 winters ago. She left me with our 3 little ones." Kisa Gotami felt a strange echo of his pain in her own heart. She saw the same hollow look in his eyes that she felt in her own soul. She moved on. She went to the house of a weaver, a potter, a farmer. She went to the richest mansion and the poorest hut. At every door, the story was the same. People were kind. They were willing to share what little they had. They offered her a handful of mustard seeds, a cup of water, a place to rest. But not one of them could give her the seed she sought. In one house, a woman wept as she spoke of the daughter she had lost, a child the same age as Kisa Gotami's son. In another, an old man spoke of the brother he had lost in his youth, a memory still sharp after 60 years. A young woman spoke of a miscarriage, a life that had ended before it had even truly begun. Death, she discovered, was a guest who had visited every single home. It did not distinguish between rich and poor, young and old. It was a thread woven into the fabric of every family, every life. As she walked from door to door, a slow, profound change began to take place within her. Her frantic energy began to dissolve. The sharp, isolating edges of her own grief began to soften. With each story she heard, she realized she was not alone. The pain she felt, this immense, world-shattering sorrow, was not hers alone. It was a human sorrow. It was the price of love, a pain that had been felt in every house, in every heart, since the beginning of time. The sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Kisa Gotami found herself standing on a small hill overlooking the village. Below, the lights in the houses began to flicker on, one by one, like scattered stars on the earth. She watched them, these small points of light in the growing darkness, and as she watched, she thought of the lives within each home. She thought of the births, the laughter, the love, and she thought of the losses, the tears, the partings. She saw that each light was a life, fragile and beautiful, destined to burn for a time and then, inevitably, to go out. Another would be lit, and it too would go out. This was the rhythm of the world, the great, inescapable law of impermanence. In that moment, watching the flickering lights, the truth she had been running from finally settled upon her. It did not crash down like a wave, but seeped into her gently, like the evening mist rising from the fields. Her son was one of those lights. His time to shine had been brief, but he had shone. And now he was extinguished. The body of her child, which she had been clutching so tightly, no longer felt like a life she had to save. It felt like a precious memory she had been holding. Her grief was still there, a vast and deep ocean within her, but it was no longer a storm. It was a deep, quiet sea. The "my" in "my son," "my loss," "my pain" had dissolved. She was part of a great river of sorrow that flowed through all of humanity. Her personal tragedy had connected her to everyone. She felt a profound compassion, not just for herself, but for the woman who had lost her father, for the man who had lost his wife, for every person in every house who had opened their door to her and shared the quiet truth of their own loss. She was one of them. They were all in this together, living and loving and losing. With a heart that was heavy but no longer frantic, she walked slowly into the forest, to a quiet place beneath the trees. There, with the utmost tenderness, she laid the body of her son down upon a bed of soft leaves. She looked at his peaceful face, no longer seeing a sickness to be cured, but a journey that had ended. She said her farewell not with a scream of protest, but with the silent tears of acceptance. She had let him go. She had no mustard seed in her hand, but she carried something else now, something far more precious: understanding. She returned to the grove where the Buddha was sitting. The moon was rising, casting a silver light through the branches. The Buddha looked up as she approached, his expression as serene as the night sky. "Have you brought the mustard seed?" he asked, his voice gentle. Kisagotami bowed her head. "No, Lord," she said, and her own voice was quiet and clear. "I have not. I have learned that the living are few, but the dead are many. The task you gave me, it was the medicine." The Buddha nodded slowly, a soft smile gracing his lips. He had not sent her on a quest for a magical seed. He had sent her on a journey to find the truth. He had guided her to discover for herself the universal nature of suffering and the profound peace that comes with acceptance. Kisagotami's wound was not gone, but it was no longer festering. It had been cleansed by the tears of shared humanity, and it could now begin to heal. She had walked into the village, a woman lost in the singular darkness of her own grief, and she had returned, a woman who understood the shared twilight of all existence, ready to walk the path of wisdom, her heart open, at last, to peace. The Buddha's gaze was like the calm surface of a deep lake, reflecting the quiet strength that had now taken root in her. He saw that she had not failed in her quest. She had succeeded in the truest sense. She had sought a cure for death, and had instead found the wisdom to understand life. "The medicine you are seeking, Kisagotami," he said, his voice weaving into the stillness of the night, "is not found in a rare herb or a magical seed. It is found in a heart that understands. You went looking for a house without sorrow, and in finding none, you found the whole world. You saw that your own pain was not a wall separating you from others, but a doorway through which you could enter every other heart. She listened, and his words were not new information, but a gentle naming of the truth she had just lived. The moonlight felt different on her skin now. Before, it had been a cold, indifferent witness to her agony. Now, it felt like a soft blessing, illuminating a world she was finally seeing for the first time. The ache for her son was still present, tender spot in the center of her being. But it was no longer a fire that consumed her. It was more like the quiet warmth of an ember, a reminder of a love that had been, a love that had cracked her heart open to hold a much greater love for all beings. She understood now that her frantic desire to save her son was a fight against the very nature of existence. It was a struggle against the river of life which flows and changes and carries all things away. In her search, she had finally stopped fighting. She had let go of the shore and allowed herself to be carried by the current. Every life is like one of those village lights you saw, the Buddha continued, as if seeing the image that was still held in her mind. It flickers for a while, casting its own unique glow. But the oil is finite, and the flame is not meant to burn forever. To grieve its passing is natural. To demand that it burn forever is to invite endless suffering. The peace you feel now comes from accepting this truth. It is the peace of letting be. Kisa Gautami knelt before him, the forest floor cool beneath her knees. She was no longer the madwoman running from death, but a pilgrim who had arrived at the threshold of a profound peace. The journey had been harrowing, but it had led her here, to this quiet grove, to this quiet mind. Her personal story, with all its sharp pain, had dissolved into the great, timeless story of birth and death, of love and loss. She saw that the only true refuge was not in clinging to what must pass away, but in cultivating a mind that could abide in the midst of change, a heart that could love without needing to possess. And so her next words came not from a place of desperation, but from a place of deep clarity. "Lord," she said, her voice steady and sure, "let me take refuge in this path. Let me learn to tend to this understanding, so that I may help others who are lost in the same darkness I once was." The Buddha smiled, for he saw that her healing was complete. The wound had become a source of wisdom, and her journey of sorrow had become the first step on the path to enlightenment. Part 2. The second arrow of suffering. From the universal heart that Kisa Gautami discovered in her sorrow, we now turn inward to the landscape of our own mind. We journey to a place where we can learn not how to prevent the pains of the world from arriving, but how to receive them with a wisdom that keeps them from taking root and becoming something more. This is the teaching of the two arrows, a simple yet profoundly healing parable offered by the Buddha to help his followers understand the nature of suffering. It is a story about the difference between the pain that life gives us and the suffering we create for ourselves. Imagine, if you will, a quiet afternoon in a sun-dappled grove. The air is warm and still, filled with the scent of jasmine and dry earth. The Buddha is sitting with his disciples, their ochre robes a soft contrast to the deep green of the mango trees. He is speaking to them not as a distant god, but as a kind and patient teacher, his voice a calm river flowing through the silence. He notices one of his monks is troubled, his brow furrowed, his shoulders tense. He has heard a harsh word from another, and the sting of it lingers. The Buddha looks at him with compassion and begins to speak. "Monks," he says, his voice drawing everyone's attention. "When an ordinary person, one who has not learned the way of mindfulness, is struck by a painful feeling, it is as if they have been shot with an arrow." He pauses, letting the image settle in their minds. An arrow. We all know this feeling. It can be a physical pain, a sudden illness, an injury, the ache of a tired body. Or it can be an emotional pain, the sharp sting of criticism, the deep ache of disappointment, the hollow sorrow of loss. This is the first arrow. It flies through the air unbidden, and it strikes. It is a fact of life. To be alive is to be vulnerable to this first arrow. It is part of the contract of being human, of having a body that feels and a heart that loves. We cannot build walls high enough to keep this arrow out forever. The rain will fall, the wind will blow, and sooner or later an arrow will find us. The pain is real, it is sharp, it is unavoidable. The Buddha continues, his gaze still resting on his troubled disciple. When this person is struck by the first arrow, they do not simply feel the pain. They immediately react. They grieve, they worry, they become angry and resentful. They cry out, "Why me? This is terrible. I can't bear this." This reaction, this mental anguish, is like being shot by a second arrow. Here lies the heart of the teaching. The first arrow is the event itself. The second arrow is our story about the event. The first arrow is the pain. The second arrow is the suffering. The first is inevitable. The second, the Buddha taught, is optional. Let us look closely at this second arrow, for it is the one we fire at ourselves, often without even realizing it. It has many forms, each one adding a new layer of poison to the original wound. The first form is the arrow of resistance. When the first arrow strikes, our immediate instinct is often to push it away. We think, "This shouldn't be happening. I don't want this feeling." We tense our bodies, we clench our jaws, we fight against the reality of the moment. This resistance is a second arrow. The pain is already here, but by fighting it, we create a new tension, a new struggle. It is like being caught in quicksand. The more we struggle against it, the deeper we sink. The initial pain is the sting of the arrow's entry, but the resistance is the grinding of the arrowhead as we try to force it out. Then comes the arrow of judgment and blame. Our mind, in its search for a reason, for a culprit, turns on itself or on others. If we turn it inward, thoughts sound like, "I am so foolish. I should have known better. It's all my fault." We take the initial pain and wrap it in layers of shame and self-criticism. We become not just a person who is hurting, but a bad person who deserves to hurt. This is a very sharp arrow indeed. Or we turn the blame outward. How could they do this to me? It's their fault. They are cruel and unfair. This creates an arrow of anger and resentment. We replay the scene in our minds over and over, feeding the fire of our indignation. The original wound may have been small, but the fire of our anger can burn down the entire forest of our peace. We hold on to the resentment like a hot coal, intending to throw it at someone else, but all the while, it is our own hand that is being seared. Another form of the second arrow is the arrow of fear. The first arrow strikes, and immediately our mind leaps into the future, imagining all the terrible things that might follow. A pain in the body becomes a story of a terminal illness. A lost job becomes a narrative of lifelong failure and poverty. A relationship ending becomes a prophecy of dying alone. This is the arrow of catastrophizing. We take one painful event and project it forward, creating a whole universe of potential future pains. We are no longer just dealing with the single arrow that has struck us in the present. We are now cowering under the threat of 1,000 more arrows that exist only in our imagination. This anxiety, this constant worry about what might come next, is a relentless second arrow, piercing our peace again and again. And perhaps the most common second arrow is the one of storytelling. The mind takes the simple fact of the first arrow and weaves an elaborate narrative around it. We become the main character, the victim, in a grand drama.
This always happens to me. Nothing ever works out for me. My life is just one long series of misfortunes. This story of poor me can feel strangely comforting for a moment, as it gives us a sense of identity, a role to play. But it is a trap. It keeps us stuck in the past, endlessly reliving our wounds, defining ourselves by our pain. The first arrow was a momentary event, but the story we tell about it can become a lifelong identity, a heavy cloak of suffering that we refuse to take off. So, the Buddha says, the unwise person is struck by the first arrow and then immediately shoots themselves with a second, a third, and sometimes a whole quiver full of them. Their suffering is immense, not just from the initial wound, but from the cloud of poisoned arrows they have surrounded themselves with. But what of the wise person? What of the student of the path? The Buddha explains, the wise person, the mindful student, when struck by a painful feeling, understands. They know, a painful feeling has arisen in me. They do not resist it. They do not create stories around it. They do not add blame or fear or anger. It is as if they have
been shot by one arrow, but they are not shot by a second. This is a revolutionary idea. It suggests that we have a choice. Between the stimulus of the first arrow and our response, there is a space. For most of us, that space is infinitesimally small. The first arrow hits, and the second one fires almost instantly, a conditioned reflex. The practice of mindfulness is the practice of widening that space. It is the art of creating a sacred pause. In that pause, we have the power to choose a different response. Instead of reacting, we can simply observe. Imagine the first arrow has struck. A wave of sadness washes over you. The old habit is to immediately fire the second arrow. I hate feeling this way. Why am I so sad? I need to get over this. The mindful approach is to simply acknowledge the first arrow, without judgment. You bring a gentle, curious attention to the feeling itself. You say to yourself, this is sadness. You feel it in your body. Where is it? Is it a heaviness in your chest? A lump in your throat? A hollowness in your stomach? You don't try to fix it or change it. You don't analyze why it's there. You simply allow it to be, as you would allow a cloud to pass through the sky. You are not the sadness. You are the sky in which the sadness is appearing. This is not easy. It requires courage. It is the courage to feel the raw, unfiltered pain of the first arrow, without the buffer of our stories and reactions. It feels vulnerable. But in this vulnerability lies a great strength. When you can sit with the pure sensation of pain, you discover something remarkable. It changes. It is not a solid, permanent thing. It is a process, a flow of energy. Like a wave, it rises, it crests, and if you allow it to, it will fall. It is our resistance, our storytelling, our fear, that freezes the wave at its peak and turns it into a solid block of ice we call suffering. The breath is our greatest ally in this practice. When the first arrow hits, the first thing we can do is return to the breath. A slow, deep inhalation. A long, gentle exhalation. The breath is our anchor in the present moment. The second arrows of fear and storytelling live in the future and the past. The breath can only happen right now. By focusing on the simple, physical sensation of the air entering and leaving our body, we create that sacred pause. We give our nervous system a moment to settle. We give our mind a chance to see clearly before it reacts blindly. When you practice this, you begin to see that the first arrow, while painful, is clean. It is a pure experience. The second arrows are what make it messy. They are what create the infection, the inflammation, the long, drawn-out agony. To feel the pain of the first arrow is to be alive. To add the suffering of the second is a choice we learn to renounce. A person you love says something unkind. The first arrow is the sting of their words. The second arrow is replaying their words for hours, imagining all the reasons they said it, building a case against them, feeling the anger and hurt fester. The wise response is to feel the initial sting, to acknowledge that hurt, and then to let it go, to return to the present without adding the heavy baggage of a story. This does not mean we become passive or that we allow others to harm us. We can still take action. We can still set boundaries or have difficult conversations. But we do so from a place of clarity, not from a place of reactive anger or fear. We act not to push away the pain, but to respond wisely to the situation that caused it. The action itself is not a second arrow. It is a skillful response to the first. As you lie here now, preparing for sleep, perhaps you can feel the faint impact of some of the day's arrows. A moment of stress at work, a worry about a family member, a feeling of disappointment in yourself. These were the first arrows of your day. Notice if you are still firing any second arrows. Are you replaying a conversation? Are you worrying about tomorrow? Are you judging yourself for something you did or didn't do? If you find these second arrows flying in the quiet of your mind, you do not need to fight them. Simply see them for what they are. You can gently say to yourself, this is the second arrow. This is the story. This is the worry. And in that moment of recognition, you have already created the space. You have found the pause. Now, you can choose to put down the bow. You can choose to let that second arrow fall harmlessly to the ground. Come back to your breath. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest or abdomen. Feel the solidness of the bed beneath you. The pain of the first arrows may still be there, a faint echo in your system. That is all right. Let it be there. Do not add the struggle. Simply hold it in a vast, kind, open awareness. The wound does not need your judgment or your stories to heal. It needs your gentle presence. It needs stillness. By letting go of the second arrow, you are creating the perfect conditions for healing, for rest, for peace. You are allowing the pain of the day to be just what it was, without letting it become the suffering of your night. You are feeling the first arrow, and then, with wisdom and grace, you are letting it be the last. Let us stay with this feeling for a little longer, exploring its texture. When we practice letting go of the second arrow, we are not engaging in a form of denial or suppression. We are not pretending the pain doesn't exist. True mindfulness is the opposite of avoidance. It is a radical act of acceptance. We are turning toward our experience, not away from it. The difference is in the quality of our attention. The second arrow is a form of frantic, agitated attention. It is the mind spinning in circles, trapped in a loop of reactivity. The mindful attention we cultivate is calm, steady, and compassionate. It is like the difference between a turbulent, churning sea, deep, still ocean. The waves of pain may still be on the surface, but we learn to rest in the quiet depths beneath them. Consider the physical body as a gateway to this practice. Often, our emotional second arrows manifest as physical tension. When we are caught in a story of worry, our shoulders might creep up toward our ears. When we are simmering in resentment, our jaw might clench. When we are judging ourselves, we might feel a tightness in our stomach. Right now, you can do a gentle scan of your body. Are there any places that feel tight or contracted? You don't need to know the story behind the tension. You don't need to analyze it. Simply bring your awareness to that spot. And with your awareness, bring your breath. Imagine your breath is a warm, gentle current of water flowing into that area of tightness. With each exhalation, imagine the tension softening, dissolving just a little. You are not forcing it to relax. You are simply inviting it to. This is the physical practice of letting go of the second arrow. You are releasing the physical armor that your mind has created to protect itself from the first arrow's pain. And in doing so, you often find that the emotional pain softens as well. This teaching also invites a profound sense of self-compassion. For so many years, we have been shooting ourselves with second arrows without even knowing it. We have judged ourselves, blamed ourselves, and frightened ourselves, all in an unconscious attempt to manage the inevitable pains of life. We can look back on this habit not with more judgment, which would just be another second arrow, but with a gentle understanding. We were doing the best we could with the tools we had. Now, we are learning a new tool. We are learning to hold our own pain with the same kindness and care we would offer to a dear friend who is hurting. Imagine a small child who has fallen and scraped their knee. The first arrow is the scraped knee. The child comes to you crying. If you were to say, "Stop crying, it's your own fault for running so fast. This is terrible and it will probably get infected," you would be shooting the child with a volley of second arrows. But of course, you would not do that. You would kneel down, you would hold the child, and you would say, "Oh, that looks like it really hurts. Let's just sit here for a moment. Let's breathe together." You would tend to the wound with gentleness. You would offer comfort and presence. This is how we learn to treat ourselves. When the first arrow of life strikes, we learn to kneel down to our own pain, to hold it with tenderness, and to offer it the simple, healing balm of our own calm, loving presence. As you drift now toward sleep, let this be your final practice. Acknowledge the first arrows of your day, the moments of pain or difficulty. See them clearly, and then, with a deep sense of kindness for yourself, consciously lay down your bow. Let go of the stories, the judgments, the fears. Let go of the need to figure it all out tonight. Allow the day to be complete. Allow the wounds to rest. There is nothing more you need to do. There is no second arrow you need to fire. There is only the gentle rhythm of your breath, the quiet support of the bed beneath you, and the vast, peaceful space of a mind that has chosen to be free from suffering. You have felt the first arrow, and now you rest. Part 3. The anger in the empty boat. Having learned to distinguish the pain life gives us from the suffering we create, we now drift into a story that explores one of the most powerful second arrows we fire at ourselves, the arrow of anger. This is a Zen tale, simple on the surface, yet as deep as the misty lake on which it takes place. It is the story of an empty boat, and it invites us to look closely at the true source of our frustrations and resentments, guiding us toward a profound and liberating peace. Imagine a man, a Zen master, though his title is not important. He is simply a man who has spent many years learning to quiet his own mind. He lives in a small hut near a large, tranquil lake. This lake is his sanctuary, his place of meditation. Each morning, just as the first hints of dawn paint the eastern sky in shades of rose and grey, he takes his small wooden boat out onto the water. The boat is old and weathered, its wood worn smooth by years of use. It is not a vessel for grand voyages, but a simple companion for his daily journey into stillness. On this particular morning, a thick fog hangs over the lake. It is a blanket of white, so dense that it blurs the line between water and sky. The world is reduced to a small, intimate circle around his boat. The only sounds are the gentle lapping of water against the hull and the rhythmic dip and pull of his single oar. The air is cool and damp, and the silence is so complete it feels like a presence. In this space, the master feels a deep sense of connection with the world. He is not a man in a boat on a lake. He is a part of the fog, a part of the water, a part of the quiet breathing of the dawn. His mind is as still and clear as the water hidden beneath the mist. He is not thinking, not striving, just being. This is his practice. This is his peace. He closes his eyes, letting the boat drift, feeling the gentle rocking as a lullaby for his soul. He is utterly absorbed in the moment, a perfect state of calm abiding. Then, suddenly, a jolt. A loud thud echoes through the misty silence. His boat is struck by another. The impact is jarring, throwing him off balance and shattering the profound stillness he was inhabiting. Immediately, a flash of irritation rises within him. His peace is broken. His meditation is ruined. Who could be so careless? Who would be rowing so recklessly in this thick fog? His eyes snap open, and the irritation quickly blossoms into a hot surge of anger. He feels his jaw tighten, his heart beat faster. He is ready to shout, to unleash a torrent of angry words at the fool who has so rudely disturbed him. He turns, his face a mask of fury, ready to confront the culprit. He glares in the direction of the other boat, his mind already rehearsing the sharp, cutting words he will use to express his outrage. He will teach this person a lesson in mindfulness, in consideration for others. How dare they? But as his eyes pierce through the thick veil of fog, he sees the other boat. It is just like his own, a small wooden vessel. But there is no one in it. There is no careless fisherman, no reckless traveler. There is no one rowing. The boat is empty. It must have broken free from its moorings somewhere up the shore and has simply been drifting, carried by the silent, invisible currents of the lake until it happened to bump into his. It is an empty boat. In that instant, his anger, so solid and real just a moment before, has nowhere to go. It is like a wave that has risen to a great height, ready to crash upon the shore, only to find the shore has vanished. The wave collapses back into the sea, its energy dissipating into nothing. Who is there to be angry at? An empty boat? Can you shout at an empty boat? Can you blame a piece of drifting wood for its carelessness? The idea is absurd. The object of his anger, the other who had wronged him, does not exist. A profound realization washes over him, far deeper than the stillness that was broken. The anger was not in the other boat. The anger was not caused by the collision. The anger was inside him. It was there, coiled and waiting, ready to be projected onto an external cause. The other boat, had it been occupied, would have simply served as a convenient hook on which to hang his own pre-existing anger. But the boat was empty, and in its emptiness, it acted as a perfect mirror, reflecting his own mind back at him. He saw, with startling clarity, that he was the source of his own disturbance. The jolt from the boat was merely the first arrow. His immediate surge of blame and rage was the second arrow, fired from his own bow. He looks at the empty boat, now gently bumping against his own, and he begins to laugh. It is not a loud, boisterous laugh, but a quiet, deep chuckle that comes from the very center of his being. He is laughing at the sheer absurdity of his own mind, at how quickly it had constructed a villain, a story of injustice, a whole drama of being wronged. He is laughing with the freedom that comes from seeing through this illusion. The world had not attacked him. An empty boat had simply drifted into him. The rest was all his own creation. This story, in its beautiful simplicity, is a powerful teaching for all of us. How often in our lives do we collide with empty boats? A person cuts us off in traffic. A colleague sends a curt email. A family member makes a thoughtless comment. A stranger on the street gives us a strange look. In these moments, our minds, just like the master's, can instantly create
a story. That person is a terrible driver. They are so selfish. My colleague is undermining me. They are being passive-aggressive. My loved one doesn't respect me. That person is judging me. We react as if we have been struck by a boat with a malicious person at the oars, someone who intentionally set out to ruin our day. Our anger flares. We feel righteous, justified. We spend the next 10 minutes, or 10 hours, or sometimes even 10 years, fuming about the person in the other boat. We replay the incident in our minds. We tell our friends about it. We build a solid case for why we are right and they are wrong. We are completely convinced that our anger is caused by them. But the wisdom of the empty boat invites us to pause and ask a radical question. What if that boat is empty? What if the person who cut us off in traffic was rushing to the hospital because their child is sick? Their mind was not on us at all. Their boat was empty of any intention to harm us. What if the colleague who sent the curt email was under immense pressure, facing a tight deadline, and simply wrote without their usual politeness? Their boat was empty. What if the family member who made the thoughtless comment was simply speaking from their own place of pain or insecurity, not with a conscious desire to hurt us? Their boat was empty. What if the stranger on the street was lost in their own thoughts, their expression having nothing to do with us at all? Their boat was empty. When we can entertain this possibility, even for a moment, something inside us shifts. Our anger, which needs an object, a target, a someone to blame, suddenly finds itself without a place to land. It begins to dissolve, just as the masters did. We realize that we have been shouting at an empty vessel. The suffering we are experiencing is not coming from the outside. It is being generated from within. It is the second arrow. This does not mean that people's actions do not have consequences, or that we should tolerate harmful behavior. The first arrow is still real. The jolt is still felt. But the teaching of the empty boat is about our internal reaction. It is about freeing ourselves from the poison of our own anger and resentment. We can still take skillful action. We can change lanes to avoid the reckless driver. We can have a calm conversation with our colleague about communication. We can set boundaries with our family member. But we do so from a place of clarity and wisdom, not from the blinding heat of rage. We are responding to the situation, not reacting to the story we have created about it. The master in the story, after his moment of laughter and insight, does something beautiful. He reaches out and, with the gentle tip of his oar, he pushes the empty boat away. He does not push it with anger or frustration. He simply guides it back on its drifting course.
He has accepted its presence, learned from its message, and now he lets it go. He returns to
his meditation. But it is a different kind of meditation now. It is deeper, richer. He has been given a profound teaching, not by a great sage, but by a piece of empty, drifting wood. He has learned that true peace is not found in a world where no one ever bumps into you. True peace is found in the inner strength to not be disturbed when they do. It is the unshakable calm of a mind that knows it is the source of its own reactions. As you settle into the quiet of this night, think of the empty boats you may have encountered today. Were there moments of frustration, irritation, or anger? Can you look back at them now through the gentle mist of this story? Can you imagine, just for a moment, that the other boat was empty? That the perceived slight was not personal? That the person who caused you pain was simply adrift, carried by the currents of their own life, their own struggles, their own unconsciousness? See if you can feel the shift that happens when you do this. Feel the tightness in your chest release. Feel the clenching in your jaw soften. Feel the narrative of blame and resentment begin to fade. You are not condoning their action. You are liberating yourself from the burden of your reaction. You are taking back your own peace. The anger was never truly about them. It was always about you. It was your energy, your story, your suffering. And because it is yours, you have the power to let it go. Like the master, you can gently push the empty boat away in your mind. Let it drift off into the fog of the past. It has delivered its message. It has served its purpose. It has shown you a hidden corner of your own mind. Now, you can return to the stillness of your own being. Return to the gentle rhythm of your breath. The lake of your mind can become calm again. The jolt of the collision is over. The waves it created are subsiding. And in the quiet that remains, there is a deep and abiding peace. It is the peace of knowing that no one and no thing can truly disturb you unless you allow them to. It is the profound freedom of the empty boat. Let us remain on this misty lake a while longer, allowing the wisdom of the empty boat to seep more deeply into our understanding. The Master's insight was not just a fleeting intellectual grasp of an idea. It was a transformation of his entire being. It was the difference between knowing the path and walking it. Before the collision, his peace was conditional. It depended on the external world remaining quiet and undisturbed. It was a fragile peace, beautiful but easily shattered. The empty boat taught him that true peace, the peace of Zen, is unconditional. It is a quality of mind that can remain serene even when the boats of life bump and jostle against it. This is a profound shift in perspective. Most of us live our lives trying to control the lake. We try to manage all the other boats, hoping to keep them from bumping into us. We invest enormous energy in trying to make other people behave the way we want them to. We want our partners to be more considerate, our children to be more obedient, our bosses to be more appreciative, and the drivers on the road to be more skillful. We believe that if we can just arrange the external world perfectly, then we will finally have peace. This is an exhausting and ultimately futile endeavor. We cannot control the currents that move the other boats. We cannot control the fog. We cannot control the vast, unpredictable nature of life. The empty boat teaches us to turn our attention away from controlling the lake and toward mastering our own vessel. The real work is not on the outside, but on the inside. It is about cultivating a mind that is so stable, so spacious, that when the inevitable bumps occur, they do not capsize us. The jolt is felt, yes, but it is met with a deep internal calm that absorbs the shock. The mind sees the event for what it is, a temporary disturbance, without adding the second arrow of a dramatic, personalized story. How do we cultivate such a mind? The Master's practice gives us a clue. He was not just aimlessly floating, he was meditating. He was practicing the art of being present, of resting in the stillness of the moment. This daily practice is what builds the inner resilience, the deep keel that keeps our boat steady in choppy waters. Each time we sit in silence, each time we follow our breath, each time we observe our thoughts without getting caught in them, we are strengthening our capacity to meet life with equanimity. We are learning to see the space between the event and our reaction to it. When the empty boat struck, the Master's initial reaction was anger. This is important. He was not a saint who felt no irritation. He was human. The conditioning of his mind, like ours, was to react with blame. The difference was that his practice had given him the clarity to see his reaction for what it was. He was able to witness his own anger arise, and because he could witness it, he was not completely consumed by it. He had enough space in his awareness to see the emptiness of the other boat, and, in that seeing, to let the anger go. This is the freedom the practice offers us. It is not the freedom from ever feeling anger, but the freedom from being a slave to it. Anger arises. We see it. We acknowledge it without judgment. Ah, anger is here. And then, because we see its source is within us, we can choose not to act on it. We can choose to let it dissolve, like the Masters did, when it finds no external object to sustain it. We learn to stop feeding the fire. Let's apply this more deeply to our relationships. So much of our interpersonal conflict comes from our assumption that the other person's boat is not empty. We believe their actions are a direct, intentional reflection of how they feel about us. If they forget our anniversary, we think, they don't love me. If they disagree with our opinion, we think, they don't respect me. We are constantly interpreting the world through a lens of me. The empty boat asks us to remove that lens, at least for a moment. What if their actions are not about us at all? What if they are simply a reflection of what is happening inside of them? Their forgetfulness might stem from their own stress and overwhelm. Their disagreement might come from their own deeply held beliefs and fears. They are in their own boat, navigating their own foggy lake, carried by the currents of their own history, their own conditioning, and their own pain. When we see this, compassion can arise where anger once stood. We can look at the other person not as an adversary who is intentionally trying to ram our boat, but as another human being who is also just trying to stay afloat. This perspective changes everything. It allows for forgiveness, not as a moral duty, but as a practical act of self-liberation. Holding on to anger is like tying the other person's empty boat to our own and dragging it with us wherever we go. It is a heavy, useless burden. Forgiveness is simply untying the rope. We let them drift away, not for their sake, but for ours. We release ourselves from the exhausting work of fueling a resentment that only poisons our own heart. As you lie here on the edge of sleep, allow your own lake to become still. Let the fog of the day's events soften and blur. If any resentments or frustrations from the day are still bumping against the hull of your mind, see if you can look at them with the wisdom of the empty boat. See the person or situation that angered you and whisper to yourself, "The boat is empty." Feel the release that comes with that phrase. It is a key that unlocks the chains of blame. The boat is empty. The anger is mine.
and because it is mine, I can let it go. Let it dissolve into the vast, quiet waters of the night, leaving you in a state of profound peace, ready to drift into the deep, restorative silence of sleep. Sitting by the river of the mind. From the misty lake of the empty boat, our journey now takes us to the bank of a flowing river. This river is not made of water. It is the river of your own mind, the ceaseless current of thoughts, feelings, and sensations that flows through you from the moment you wake until the moment you fall asleep. Tonight, we will not try to stop this river or change its course. We will simply learn to sit beside it, to watch it flow with a gentle, accepting awareness. This is the practice of calm observation, a path to finding a deep and unshakable stillness right in the midst of the mind's constant movement. Imagine yourself walking through a quiet, ancient forest. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and pine needles. Sunlight filters through the high canopy of leaves, dappling the path before you with shifting patterns of light and shadow. The only sounds are the soft crunch of your footsteps on the forest floor and the distant call
of a bird. You are walking without a destination, simply enjoying the feeling of moving through this peaceful, living world. As you walk, you begin to hear a new sound, a gentle, constant murmuring. It grows louder as you approach, and soon you find yourself standing on the bank of a wide, clear river. The water flows steadily, neither turbulent nor stagnant. It glints in the sunlight, carrying with it the occasional leaf, a fallen twig, or a cluster of white blossoms from a tree upstream. You find a comfortable spot on the soft, mossy bank, perhaps leaning against the smooth, warm bark of an old tree. You have nothing to do, nowhere to go. Your only purpose is to sit here, by the side of this river, and watch. You are not a part of the river. You are the silent, peaceful witness on the bank. Now, gently close the eyes of your imagination and recognize that this river is a perfect metaphor for your own mind. The flowing water is the stream of your consciousness. The leaves, twigs, and blossoms are your thoughts, your emotions, your memories, your plans, your worries. They arise from some unknown place upstream. They float through your awareness for a time, and then they drift away downstream, disappearing from view. Your practice, right now, is to take your seat on the bank. You are not the river, you are the observer of the river. Let's watch for a moment. What is floating by on the river of your mind right now? Perhaps a leaf appears, a thought about something that happened today. Maybe it's a memory of a conversation, a task you completed, or a moment of simple pleasure. See it clearly. Notice its shape, its color. Is it a happy thought? A neutral one? You don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to grab it and analyze it. You don't need to push it away or try to sink it. Simply acknowledge its presence. A thought about my day. And then you let it continue its journey, watching as it floats gently by and disappears around the bend. Another object appears. This one is a bit heavier, like a gnarled twig. It is a worry about tomorrow, a plan that needs to be made, a problem that needs to be solved. The mind's habit is to immediately jump into the river. We want to grab that twig, turn it over and over, inspect it from every angle. We get caught in the current, tumbling along with the worry, becoming completely entangled in it. We forget that we are sitting on the bank. We believe we are the worry. But tonight, we are practicing something different. We see the twig of worry floating by. We notice the familiar urge to jump in after it. But we resist. We stay firmly seated on the bank. We watch the worry. We can even name it softly in our minds. Worrying. Planning. By naming it, we create a little space. We are not the worry. We are the one who is aware of the worry. And, just like the leaf, we watch as the twig of worry also continues its journey down the river, carried away by the current. Perhaps a whole cluster of blossoms floats by, a pleasant daydream or a happy memory. The temptation here is also to jump into the river, to cling to the blossoms, to try and hold on to them and keep them from floating away. We want to relive the pleasant feeling, to extend the moment. But this too is a form of entanglement. It is attachment. The practice on the bank is to enjoy the beauty of the blossoms as they pass, to appreciate their fragrance, but to let them go. We don't need to possess them to enjoy them. We can simply witness their fleeting beauty with a grateful heart, and then watch as they too drift away. Sometimes what floats by is not so clear. It might be a murky feeling, a sense of unease or sadness, like a patch of muddy water in the clear stream. Our instinct is to stir it up, to try and figure out where it came from and what it means. Or we might try to build a dam to stop it from flowing past us. But from our seat on the bank, we can simply allow this murky water to be part of the river's flow. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to fix it. We can just watch it with a kind and patient attention. Sadness is here. We breathe with it. We allow it to move through our awareness without resistance. And we discover that, like everything else in the river, it too will pass. The river will become clear again on its own, if we just let it be. This is the essence of meditative practice. It is the cultivation of a non-judgmental, witnessing presence. The power of this practice lies in its profound simplicity. We are not trying to empty our minds. The river will always flow. Trying to stop the flow of thoughts is like trying to dam a great river with your bare hands. It is an exhausting and futile struggle that only creates more turbulence. The goal is not an empty mind, but a mind that is at peace with its own fullness. The goal is to find the stillness, not by stopping the river, but by resting on the bank. As you continue to sit by your inner river, you may notice that the mind has a powerful habit of leaving the bank. One moment you are peacefully watching, and the next you realize you have been swept away by a thought for the last 5 minutes. You have been tumbling in the current, completely lost in a story or a plan. This is not a failure. This is a golden opportunity. The moment you realize you have been swept away is a moment of mindfulness. It is a moment of waking up. And in that moment, you do not scold yourself or feel discouraged. You simply and very gently guide yourself back to your seat on the bank. You return to your breath. You return to your role as the quiet observer. You begin again. This act of gently returning, over and over, is the very heart of the practice. Each time you return, you are strengthening the muscle of your awareness. You might also notice that the river has different speeds and textures. Sometimes it is slow, calm, and clear. The thoughts are gentle and sparse. At other times, especially after a busy or stressful day, The river can be a raging torrent. Thoughts and feelings come thick and fast, churning the water into a chaotic foam. It can feel overwhelming. In these moments, it is more important than ever to remain firmly on the bank. Do not try to fight the torrent. Do not get discouraged by the chaos. Your job is simply to witness the storm without being swept away by it. Your stillness on the bank becomes an anchor in the midst of the turbulence. And by simply watching the storm without adding more energy to it, you allow it to gradually pass. The river will always, eventually, find its way back to a calmer flow. This practice of sitting by the river of the mind has a profound effect on our relationship with our own thoughts and emotions. We begin to see them for what they are: transient mental events. They are not solid, permanent realities. They are not us. A thought is just a thought. A feeling is just a feeling. They are like weather patterns passing through the vast sky of our awareness. Before this practice, we might have believed we were the clouds, the rain, the storm. Now, we are learning to rest in our identity as the sky itself, vast, open, and fundamentally untouched by the weather that passes through it. This brings a great sense of freedom. We are no longer at the mercy of every thought or mood that arises. We don't have to believe every story our mind tells us. We don't have to react to every emotion that floats by. We can see a thought of anger arise and choose not to follow it. We can see a wave of anxiety crest and know that it will pass. We have a choice. We have found a place of refuge within ourselves, a place of deep inner quiet that is always available, no matter how turbulent the river of the mind may be. As you lie here, preparing for sleep, let your bed be the mossy bank of the river. Let your body be heavy and relaxed, firmly grounded in the present moment. Your breath is your anchor, the gentle rhythm that keeps you connected to your seat on the bank. Now, just allow the river of your mind to flow. Let the thoughts of the day, the plans for tomorrow, the lingering feelings and sensations, let them all be leaves and twigs on the water. You don't need to engage with them. You don't need to sort them out. Your work for the day is done. Now is the time for rest. Watch as a thought about your to-do list floats by. Let it go. Watch as a memory from the evening drifts past. Let it go. Watch as a flicker of worry about the future appears. Let it go. You are the silent witness, resting in a state of peaceful detachment. With each thought you let go of, you are becoming lighter. With each moment you spend on the bank, you are sinking deeper into stillness. The river may continue to flow for a while, but its current is becoming slower, gentler. The space between the thoughts is growing longer, and in that space, there is peace. There is rest. You are not trying to fall asleep. You are simply resting on the bank of the river. And from that place of profound calm and letting go, sleep will naturally arise, like a gentle mist rising from the quiet water, to envelop you in its peaceful embrace. Let us deepen this practice, exploring the more subtle currents of the river. As you become more accustomed to sitting on the bank, you start to notice finer details in the water's flow. You see not just the large logs of major worries or the bright blossoms of happy memories, but also the tiny, almost transparent specks of sensation. A faint itch on your shoulder, the feeling of the blanket against your skin, the distant sound of the house settling. These too are objects floating in the stream of consciousness. Our habit is often to ignore them or to react to them unconsciously. A slight shift in position, a scratch. But on the bank, we can practice observing even these subtle events with the same gentle, non-reactive awareness. We can feel an itch arise, watch it for a moment without immediately scratching, and notice that it, too, often passes on its own. This teaches us an incredible patience and stability. We are learning to be at ease with minor discomforts, both physical and mental, which, in turn, prepares us to meet larger discomforts with greater equanimity. You also begin to notice the source of the river. Where do these thoughts and feelings actually come from? As you watch, you realize you cannot predict what will float by next. A memory from childhood might appear, completely unbidden. A line from a song might pop into your head. A sudden feeling of joy or sadness might arise for no apparent reason. The river's source is a mystery. This is a humbling and liberating realization. We are not the authors of most of our thoughts. We are not consciously creating them. They simply arise out of the vast, mysterious ground of our being. This insight helps us to take our thoughts less personally. If we are not the one creating them, then we don't have to identify with them so strongly. A dark or negative thought can float by, and instead of thinking, "I'm a bad person for having this thought," we can simply see it as a dark leaf on the river. It is not us. It is just a piece of mental flotsam, arising from the mysterious depths and passing through. This detachment is a profound source of peace. Furthermore, sitting on the bank allows us to see the interconnectedness of the river's contents. We might notice that a certain type of thought, a memory of a past argument, for instance, is often followed by a particular feeling, like a surge of anger or a wave of sadness. We begin to see our own mental patterns, the habitual chains of association that our mind follows. It's like noticing that every time a red leaf floats by, it's followed by a patch of murky water. By simply observing these patterns without judgment, we begin to loosen their grip on us. The next time the red leaf of that memory appears, we are ready. We see it coming, and we can say to ourselves, this is the thought that is often followed by anger. This simple act of recognition creates a pause, and in that pause, we have the freedom to not fall into the old reactive pattern. We can watch the memory float by without letting it stir up the mud of anger. We are no longer a victim of our own conditioning. We are a conscious observer of it, and that makes all the difference. This practice also cultivates a deep sense of trust. We learn to trust the river. We learn that it has its own wisdom. We don't need to manage it, control it, or force it to be clear and calm all the time. We learn that even the turbulent, muddy periods have their purpose. They may be clearing out old debris, bringing things to the surface that need to be seen and released. By trusting the process and staying on the bank, we allow the mind's natural capacity for healing and self-regulation to function. We stop interfering. It is like having a wound. If we are constantly picking at it and trying to fix it, it will never heal. But if we can leave it alone, keep it clean, and allow it to be, the body's innate wisdom will heal it perfectly. Our mind is the same. By resting in awareness, we are creating the clean, spacious conditions for our mind to find its own balance and clarity.
As you lie here, sinking deeper into relaxation, let this trust permeate your being. Trust that you don't need to solve all your problems right now. Trust that the river of your mind will find its way to the great ocean of peace without your effortful striving. Your only task is to rest, to watch, to allow. Feel the gentle current of your breath. Each breath is a reminder of your place on the bank. Inhale and you are present. Exhale and you are letting go. Let the river carry away the weight of the day. Let it carry away the concerns for tomorrow. Let it flow on while you remain here in this quiet, safe, and peaceful space. The contents of the mind become less and less important. The thoughts become more distant, like murmurs from a faraway stream. What becomes more prominent is the silence that surrounds the river, the vast, peaceful awareness in which the entire flow is happening. This is your true nature. You are not the river. You are the silent, spacious, peaceful bank. And in this stillness, sleep will come. Emptying the cup for clarity. Having learned to sit peacefully by the river of the mind, we now arrive at the threshold of a Zen master's home. Here, we will explore a story not about what we should add to our lives to find peace, but about what we must be willing to let go of. It is the famous tale of a teacup, a story that speaks to the profound necessity of emptying our minds to make space for true wisdom and clarity. It teaches us that the greatest obstacle to learning is often not our ignorance, but the illusion of our own knowledge. The story takes place in Japan
During the Meiji era, a time of great change when ancient traditions were meeting modern ideas. In a quiet corner of a bustling city, there lived a Zen master named Nan-in. He was not a grand figure who preached to large crowds. He lived a simple life in a small temple with a beautiful, tranquil garden. Yet his reputation for wisdom was immense. People from all walks of life sought his guidance, not because he offered complex philosophical doctrines, but because he had a way of cutting through to the very heart of the matter with a simple word or a profound silence. One day, a visitor arrived at his gate. This was no ordinary seeker. He was a university professor, a man of great learning and high esteem in the academic world. He had read all the major sutras, studied the philosophical texts of both the East and the West, and had written several acclaimed books on the subject of religion and spirituality. He had come to Nan-in to inquire about Zen, but in his heart, he had not come to learn. He had come to add the master's perspective to his own vast collection of knowledge, to compare it, to analyze it, and perhaps to debate it. He saw Zen as another interesting specimen to be cataloged and understood within his existing intellectual framework. Nan-in received the professor with the simple grace and humility that characterized him. He led him through the garden, past a pond where koi fish swam like living jewels, and into a small, sparse room used for serving tea. The room was clean and uncluttered. A single scroll with elegant calligraphy hung on one wall. The air was still and held the faint scent of old wood and incense. They knelt on cushions opposite each other, a small, low table between them. There was no grand ceremony, just the quiet, deliberate movements of a man preparing to share a moment of hospitality. The professor, accustomed to leading discussions and commanding attention, began to speak immediately. He did not ask questions, he made pronouncements. He spoke at length about his own understanding of Buddhist philosophy, quoting ancient texts, comparing different schools of thought, and explaining his own elaborate theories about the nature of consciousness and enlightenment. He talked and talked, his voice filling the quiet room, his words a dense and intricate web of concepts and ideas. He was a fountain of information, a walking library of spiritual knowledge. Nan In listened. He did not interrupt. He did not argue or offer a counter-opinion. He simply listened with a calm, patient, and unwavering attention. His presence was like a deep, silent pool of water, receiving the torrent of the professor's words without being disturbed by them. While the professor spoke, Nan In quietly went about the business of preparing the tea. He lit the small charcoal brazier, listened for the sound of the water beginning to sing in the iron kettle, and measured the green tea leaves into a small, delicate porcelain cup. His movements were fluid, precise, and full of a quiet grace. Every action was a meditation. The professor, caught up in the flow of his own intellect, barely noticed. He continued his monologue, explaining how he believed Zen could be integrated into his own philosophical system, how its paradoxes could be resolved through logical analysis. He was, in essence, explaining Zen to the Zen master. Finally, the water in the kettle was ready. Nan In lifted it and, with a steady hand, began to pour the steaming, fragrant tea into the professor's cup. The professor paused his lecture for a moment to accept the offering. Nan In poured, and the beautiful, pale green liquid filled the small cup. It reached the brim. But Nan In did not stop pouring. He continued to pour, his expression serene and unchanging. The tea overflowed. It ran down the sides of the cup, forming a steaming puddle on the wooden table, and then began to drip onto the tatami mat below. The professor watched, first with confusion, and then with alarm. "Stop!" he cried out, startled from his intellectual reverie. "What are you doing? The cup is full. It can't hold any more." Nan In calmly set down the kettle. He looked directly into the professor's eyes, his gaze gentle but piercing. And then he spoke, his voice as quiet and clear as the tea he had just poured. "Like this cup," he said, "you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The professor was stunned into silence. The master's simple action and his few quiet words had shattered his intellectual fortress. In that moment, he understood. All his books, all his theories, all his clever arguments, they were the overflowing tea. His mind was so full of what he thought he knew that there was no room for anything new to enter. He had not come to receive. He had come to acquire. He had not come with the open hands of a student, but with the closed fists of a collector. He had been trying to pour the vast ocean of Zen into his own tiny, already full cup. The silence in the room was no longer just an absence of noise. It was a living presence, filled with the professor's dawning realization. He looked at the overflowing cup, the wasted tea, and he saw a perfect reflection of his own mind. He had been so proud of his full cup, but now he saw that its fullness was its limitation. It was a barrier. He felt a wave of humility wash over him, a feeling he had not experienced in many years. He was not a great scholar here. He was a beginner. He knew nothing. This story is a timeless lesson for all of us on our own journey toward clarity and peace. Our cups are often full. They are full of our beliefs about ourselves and the world. I am this kind of person. Life should be this way. This is right and that is wrong. They are full of our past experiences, the old hurts and resentments that we carry with us, which color our perception of the present moment. They are full of our anxieties about the future, the endless plans and worries that keep our minds spinning. They are full of the noise of society, the opinions of others, the constant stream of information that we absorb without question. We come to a practice like meditation, or to a moment of quiet reflection, hoping to find peace. But we often approach it like the professor. We bring our full cup with us. We try to fit the stillness into our busy, noisy minds. We try to understand letting go as another concept to be added to our collection. We analyze it. We judge our progress. We try to achieve it. And we wonder why we don't feel any different. We are trying to pour fresh, clean water into a cup that is already full of stale, muddy water. The result is just more murky water. The invitation of Zen, and of this story, is to first empty the cup. This is not an act of ignorance, but an act of profound intelligence. It is the wisdom of beginner's mind. A beginner's mind is open, eager, and free of preconceptions. It is the mind of a child who sees the world for the first time, full of wonder and possibility. The expert's mind, by contrast, is often closed. It thinks it already knows the answers, so it is not open to new questions or new experiences. So how do we empty our cup? It is not a violent act of throwing everything out. It is a gentle process of letting go. It is the practice of sitting by the river of the mind and not clinging to the leaves and twigs that float by. Each time we let a thought go without following it, we are creating a little more space in our cup. Each time we release a judgment about ourselves or others, we are pouring out a little of the old, stale water. Each time we let go of a worry about the future and return to the simple reality of our breath in this moment, we are emptying our cup. It requires humility. It is the willingness to say, "I don't know." This can be frightening for the ego, which thrives on certainty and expertise. But in that "I don't know" lies an immense freedom. It is the freedom to see things as they are, not as we think they should be. It is the freedom to truly listen, not just to a Zen master, but to our own heart, to the people in our lives, to the quiet wisdom of the present moment. When our cup is empty, we can receive the world. As you lie here, preparing for sleep, this is a beautiful practice to undertake. Imagine your mind is a teacup. Throughout the day, it has been filled. It has been filled with the demands of work, the conversations you've had, the news you've read, the plans you've made, the emotions you've felt. It is full to the brim, perhaps even overflowing with a sense of mental clutter and exhaustion. Now, with each gentle exhalation, imagine you are tipping the cup just a little, allowing some of its contents to pour out. With your next breath, let go of the day's work. Let the responsibilities, the successes, frustrations, let them all pour out onto the ground, where they can be absorbed and transformed. They are finished for today. Empty the cup. With the next breath, let go of the conversations of the day. Let go of what was said and what was left unsaid. Release any lingering tension or misunderstanding. Empty the cup. Continue this gentle process. Let go of your plans for tomorrow. They will be there for you in the morning. For now, they are just thoughts, and you can let them pour out. Let go of any worries or anxieties. They are just stories about a future that has not yet happened. Let them go. Let go of any judgments you have been holding against yourself or others. These are heavy stones at the bottom of your cup. Let them roll out. Let go of the need to understand everything, the need to have it all figured out. Surrender to the mystery. With each exhalation, feel your cup becoming lighter, clearer, more spacious. You are not forcing anything. You are simply creating the intention to release and allowing the breath to be the gentle agent of that release. Feel the quiet that begins to emerge in the emptiness. It is not a dead, vacant emptiness. It is a living, vibrant stillness, full of potential. It is the space in which clarity can arise. It is the silence in which you can hear the subtle whispers of your own intuition. It is the fertile ground in which peace can take root. The professor, after his encounter with Nan-in, was a changed man. He did not abandon his intellect, but he no longer allowed it to be his master. He learned to approach the world with an empty cup, with the humility and openness of a true beginner. And in that emptiness, he found a wisdom far deeper than any his books could ever provide. Tonight, you can find that same wisdom. Let your mind become that empty cup, clean, clear, and ready to receive the deep, restorative nourishment of a peaceful night's sleep. There is nothing you need to hold on to, nothing you need to figure out. Simply rest in the beautiful, spacious emptiness you have created, and let it be filled with peace. Let us explore this idea of emptiness, or shunyata in Sanskrit, a little more deeply, for it is one of the most profound and often misunderstood concepts in Zen. The emptiness Nan-in pointed to is not a void, a nothingness, or a state of deprivation. It is quite the opposite. It is a state of pure potentiality. Think of the cup itself. When it is full, its function is limited to what it contains. A cup full of stale tea can only be a cup of stale tea. But when the cup is empty, it can hold anything. It can receive fresh tea, clear water, or sweet wine. Its emptiness is its potential. Our mind is the same. When it is full of rigid beliefs, prejudices, and old stories, its potential is limited. It can only interpret the world through those old filters. But when the mind is empty, open, flexible, and present, it can receive the richness of reality as it is, in this very moment, without distortion. This emptying of the cup is a continuous practice, not a one-time event. We don't just empty our cup once and then remain clear forever. Life is constantly pouring things into it. Every experience, every piece of information, every interaction has the potential to become another fixed opinion, another piece of mental clutter. So, the practice is a daily, even moment-to-moment act of letting go. It is a commitment to what Zen master Shunryu Suzuki called "don't know mind." This is not a mind of ignorance, but a mind that has let go of the arrogance of certainty. It is a mind that is willing to be surprised, to be proven wrong, to learn. Consider how this applies to our relationships. We often approach the people we love with a cup that is completely full of our ideas about them. We have a story about who our partner is, who our child is, who our friend is. This story is built from past experiences, expectations, and assumptions. Because our cup is so full of this story, we often fail to see the actual person standing in front of us. We see our idea of them. We interact with our projection of them. This is the source of so much misunderstanding and conflict. We get angry when they don't act according to the story we've written for them. To empty the cup in a relationship means to consciously set aside our stories and expectations, and to meet the other person with a fresh, open curiosity. It means to listen, not to confirm what we already think we know, but to truly hear what they are saying, right now. It means to see them not as a fixed entity, but as a flowing river, constantly changing and evolving, just as we are. When we can offer another person the gift of our empty cup, we create a space for real connection, for genuine intimacy to blossom. We give them the freedom to be who they are, not who we want them to be. This practice also transforms our relationship with ourselves. Our cup is often fullest when it comes to our own self-image. We carry around a heavy collection of beliefs about ourselves. I am not good enough. I am anxious. I am not a creative person. I always fail at this. These are just old, stale stories we keep telling ourselves. They are not the truth of who we are. Who we are is the empty cup itself, the vast, open awareness that is capable of holding any thought or feeling without being defined by it. The practice of emptying the cup is the practice of self-compassion. It is the act of gently letting go of these limiting self-judgments. When a thought like, "I am not good enough," arises, we can see it as just another drop of stale tea. We don't have to believe it. We can acknowledge it. The not good enough story again. And then gently pour it out. We can choose to rest in the spaciousness of our own being, which is beyond all labels and definitions. In this emptiness, we find our true strength, our innate wholeness. As you lie here on the verge of sleep, the process of emptying the cup becomes a beautiful surrender. It is a release of control. All day long we try to manage our lives, to hold on to our ideas, to control outcomes. It is exhausting. The night offers us a sacred opportunity to let it all go, to relinquish the burden of being the knower, the doer, the controller. You can allow yourself to simply be, to rest in the profound peace of don't know mind. You don't need to know how you will fall asleep. You don't need to know what dreams may come. You don't need to know how you will face tomorrow. All you need to do is empty your cup and trust. Trust in the deep wisdom of your body to rest. Trust in the quiet presence of your being to hold you. In this vast, clear emptiness, there is no room for anxiety. There is only peace. Let this be your final thought, a gentle mantra as you drift off. Empty cup, open heart, peaceful mind. Part 6. Putting down the heavy stone. From the quiet space of an empty mind, we now walk a mountain path to learn a lesson not of the mind, but of the heart and the hands. It is a story about the burdens we carry, the heavy grievances and sorrows that we hold on to for so long they become a part of us. This is a tale of profound simplicity, one that reveals that the most complex emotional knots can often be untied not with intricate thinking, but with a single, decisive act of letting go. It is the story of putting down a heavy stone. In a monastery nestled halfway up a cloud-wreathed mountain, there lived a young monk named Kaito. He was diligent in his duties, faithful in his meditation, and kind to his brothers. Yet, for all his outward composure, Kaito was a man in deep and constant pain. This pain was not visible to others, but he carried its physical symbol with him at all times. It was a stone. It was not a small pebble, but a large, heavy river stone, grey and smooth in some places, jagged and sharp in others. It was large enough that he had to cradle it in both arms, its dead weight pulling his shoulders forward into a permanent stoop, straining the muscles in his back and neck. He carried it everywhere. When he swept the temple courtyard, he would first place the stone carefully on the ground, sweep a small area, and then pick it up again before moving on. When he sat for meditation, the stone rested heavily in his lap, a cold, solid presence that made true stillness impossible. When he ate his simple meals, he would balance it beside him on the bench, a constant, silent companion. At night, he slept with it on the floor next to his mat, and it was the first thing he reached for upon waking in the dark, cold hours before dawn. The other monks had long ago stopped asking him about it. In the beginning, they had inquired, but Kaito would only shake his head, his eyes clouded with a sorrow he could not articulate. They learned to accept it as his private penance, his mysterious burden. They saw the toll it was taking. They saw the weariness in his eyes, the deep lines of strain etched around his mouth, the way he could never fully stand up straight, as if the weight of the stone was crushing not just his body, but his spirit. The stone was a grievance he could not release. Years ago, before he had come to the monastery, he had been deeply wronged by someone he trusted. The betrayal had left a wound in him so profound that it had never healed. The anger, the resentment, the endless replaying of the event in his mind, these feelings had solidified over time, becoming this heavy, tangible object. In his mind, carrying the stone was an act of justice. It was a testament to the magnitude of his pain. To put it down, he felt, would be to say that what happened did not matter. It would be to let the person who had hurt him go free. And so he clung to his burden, believing it was the only way to honor his own suffering. But the stone was not punishing the person who had wronged him. It was only crushing him. He tried to find relief. He meditated on compassion, but his heart felt closed and hard. He chanted sutras about forgiveness, but the words felt hollow, like echoes in an empty room. He reasoned with himself, telling himself that the past was the past, but the emotional charge was still there, a live current running through him. The weight of the stone was the only thing that felt real. Years passed in this way, and Kaito grew more and more weary. The burden was becoming unbearable. He felt he was slowly turning to stone himself. One day, the old abbot of the monastery, a man of quiet and gentle wisdom, called Kaito to his chambers. He did not mention the stone. He simply said, "There is a master who lives at the very peak of this mountain. His name is Zenshin. He does not teach with words, but his presence is said to be a great medicine. Perhaps the mountain air will do you good. Make the journey. Visit him." A flicker of hope, faint but persistent, stirred in Kaito's heart. He had heard whispers of this master, a hermit who lived in solitude, said to be as old and as wise as the mountain itself. With the abbot's blessing, Kaito began his journey the next morning. The path to the summit was steep and treacherous. It was a narrow trail of rocks and roots, winding its way up through ancient forests and across exposed ridges. For any other pilgrim, the climb would have been difficult. For Kaito, carrying his heavy stone, it was a torment.
With every step, the stone seemed to grow heavier. Its sharp edges dug into his arms. His muscles screamed in protest, and his breath came in ragged gasps. Several times he stumbled, his body trembling with exhaustion. He had to stop and rest every few minutes, leaning against a tree, the stone a leaden weight in his lap. As he climbed, he felt the full, crushing force of his burden as never before. The physical struggle was a perfect mirror of his inner turmoil.
The journey was forcing him to confront the true cost of what he was carrying. After a long and arduous day, covered in sweat and dust, his body aching with a pain that went bone deep, he finally reached the summit. There, perched on a small ledge overlooking a sea of clouds, was a tiny, simple hut made of wood and mud. An old man with a long white beard and eyes as clear and bright as the mountain sky was sitting on a rock outside, mending a fishing net. He looked up as Kaito approached, his gaze calm and accepting. This was Zenshin. Kaito stumbled forward and collapsed to his knees, carefully placing the heavy stone on the ground before the master. He was too exhausted to speak. He simply knelt there, his head bowed, his body trembling. Zenshin said nothing. He did not ask about the stone or the journey. He simply continued to mend his net, his movements slow and deliberate. The silence on the mountaintop was absolute, broken only by the sound of the wind whispering through the pines. After a long time, when Kaito had caught his breath, Zenshin finally looked at him, his gaze falling upon the stone. "That looks heavy," he said, his voice quiet and raspy, like the sound of dry leaves skittering across rock. Tears welled in Kaito's eyes. It was the first time in years that someone had acknowledged his burden so simply, without judgment or pity. "It is, Master," Kaito whispered. "I have been carrying it for a very long time." "Why?" asked Zenshin. The simple question caught Kaito off guard. He began to explain, the words tumbling out of him, the whole, long, sad story of his betrayal, his pain, his justification for carrying the stone. He explained that it was a reminder, a memorial to his suffering, a way of holding on to the truth of what had happened. He spoke for a long time, pouring out the contents of his wounded heart. Zenshin listened patiently, his clear eyes never leaving Kaito's face. When Kaito had finished, his voice trailing off into a choked silence, the master did not offer words of comfort or complex philosophical advice. He simply looked at Kaito, then at the stone, and then back at Kaito. "Put it down," he said. Kaito stared at him, confused. "But, Master, I have put it down. It is here on the ground." Zenshin shook his head gently. "You have set it on the ground for a moment to rest, but in your heart you are still carrying it. You are poised to pick it up again the moment you leave. I mean, put it down. Leave it here. Let it go." The master's words struck Kaito with the force of a physical blow. Let it go? It was unthinkable. The idea terrified him. The stone was his identity. His grievance was the foundation of his story. Who would he be without it? The fear was so strong it made him defensive. "I cannot," he said, his voice rising. "You don't understand the injustice. Putting it down would mean it never happened. It would mean my suffering was for nothing." Zenshin's expression did not change. It remained one of profound, unwavering compassion. He did not argue with Kaito's logic. He simply pointed to the deep, raw grooves in Kaito's arms, where the stone had rested for so long. He pointed to Kaito's stooped back, to the exhaustion in his face. "The injustice happened many years ago," Zenshin said softly. "But the suffering is happening now. The stone is not hurting the one who wronged you. It is only hurting you. Every moment you choose to carry it, you are choosing to continue the pain. The original wound was given to you by another, but the wound you carry today is the one you give to yourself." He paused, letting the truth of his words settle in the quiet air. "The stone is not the memory," he continued. "It is the resentment. You can put down the stone of resentment and still hold the memory, but hold it as a scar that has taught you, not as a wound that is still bleeding. Put it down, Kaito. Not for them, for you." Kaito looked at the stone. He looked at his own trembling, scarred hands. And for the first time, he saw the stone not as a symbol of justice, but as a prison. He saw that he had been its keeper, yes, but he had also been its only prisoner. The freedom he had been denying his enemy was the very freedom he had been denying himself. The master's words were a key, turning a lock that had been rusted shut for years. Slowly, deliberately, he made a choice. He reached out his hands, not to pick up the stone, but to push it. He pushed it away from him, just a few inches. It was a small movement, but it felt monumental. Then he stood up. He stood up straight, without the familiar counterbalancing weight in his arms. He felt dizzyingly light. He rolled his shoulders back, feeling the release of muscles that had been clenched for years. He took a deep, full breath, the first he had taken in a decade. A breath that filled his entire chest without the heavy pressure of the stone against it. A sob escaped his lips, a sound of grief and release all at once. The tears that came were not tears of anger, but of liberation. He had put it down. The story was over. He was free. As you lie here now, preparing for your own deep rest, feel the truth of this story in your own body. We all carry stones. Perhaps you are carrying a stone from today, a frustration at work, a harsh word from a loved one, a disappointment. It might be a small stone, a pebble, but you are still holding it tightly in the fist of your mind. Perhaps you are carrying a much older, heavier stone, a regret from your past, a long-held grudge against someone, or a deep-seated guilt. Feel the weight of it now. Where do you feel it in your body? Is it a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, an ache in your shoulders? Acknowledge its presence. You have been carrying it for a reason. You believed you had to. But tonight, you can hear the Master's voice, whispering gently in the quiet of your own heart. Put it down. With your next exhalation, imagine you are opening your hands. You are releasing your grip on that story, that grievance, that regret. Just let it go. Imagine the stone rolling out of your hands and falling away, its weight disappearing into the deep, soft darkness beneath you. It does not make a loud crash. It makes no sound at all. It simply dissolves. Feel the lightness that comes into your body. Feel your shoulders relax and drop. Feel the knot in your stomach unwind. Feel your chest open, allowing you to breathe more deeply, more freely. You are not denying what happened. You are not saying it didn't matter. You are simply choosing to stop carrying the suffering of it into this present moment, into this sacred time of rest. You are choosing freedom. You are choosing peace. Put down the stone, and in its place, let there be only lightness. Let there be only rest. Kaito stood on that mountain peak for a long time, breathing. It was as if he was learning to breathe for the first time. The air felt different, cleaner, and more expansive. The world looked different, brighter. The sea of clouds below seemed to shimmer with a new light. Without the stone, his senses were sharper. He could feel the gentle touch of the wind on his face, hear the subtle song of a cricket in a nearby bush, and smell the crisp, clean scent of the pines. He had been so focused on the weight in his arms that he had been numb to the world around him. Zenshin watched him, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. He had not performed a miracle. He had not offered a magic solution. He had simply pointed to the truth that was already present, waiting to be seen. The power to let go had always been within Kaito. He just needed someone to show him that the door to his prison was not locked from the outside, but from the inside. "The habit of carrying will be strong," Zenshin said, his voice cutting gently through Kaito's reverie. "For years, your hands have known only this weight. They will feel empty. Your mind will search for its familiar burden. It will try to convince you to pick it up again. It will tell you that you are weak for letting it go, that you have forgotten the injustice. This is the echo of the stone." Kaito looked at the master, his heart full of gratitude, but also a flicker of fear. He was right. The absence of the stone felt strange, almost wrong. His body was so accustomed to the strain that the new lightness felt precarious. "When the echo comes," Zenshin continued, "do not fight it. Simply notice it. See the mind's habit, the hand's memory. And then, bring your attention to your breath. Feel the lightness of the air filling your lungs. Bring your attention to your feet on the ground. Feel the solid earth supporting you. The stone gave you a false sense of being grounded, a grounding through pain. Now, you must learn to find your ground in the present moment, in the simple reality of your body and your breath. This is true strength. This is true stability." The journey back down the mountain was a revelation for Kaito. He moved with an ease he had not known since he was a child. He noticed the delicate beauty of the wildflowers growing in the crevices of the rocks, the way the light played through the leaves, the sound of a hidden waterfall. The world had been here all along, but he had been blind to it, his vision obscured by the sheer effort of carrying his burden. He realized the stone had not only weighed down his body, but it also consumed all his attention, leaving no room for joy, no space for beauty. When he arrived back at the monastery, the other monks stared at him in astonishment. He was a different man. He stood tall. The stoop in his shoulders was gone. The weary, pained expression on his face had been replaced by a quiet, gentle serenity. It was as if he had aged backwards, shedding years of accumulated sorrow. They did not need to ask what had happened. They could see his freedom.
As you lie here, having put down your own stone, recognize that the journey is not over with that single act. It is a new beginning. The space that was once occupied by the heavy stone is now open. What will you fill it with? Zenshin's advice to Kaito is his advice to you. Fill it with the present moment. Fill it with your breath. When the memory of the old hurt arises, as it may, see it not as a call to pick up the stone again, but as a simple reminder to come back to the here and now. Come back to the feeling of the sheets against your skin. Come back to the gentle darkness of the room. Come back to the quiet rhythm of your own heart beating peacefully in your chest. Each time you choose the present moment over the past grievance, you are strengthening your freedom. You are retraining your mind and body to live in a new way, a way of lightness and ease. The grooves in your arms will fade. The stoop in your spirit will straighten. You are healing. This is the true meaning of forgiveness. It is not an act of grace you offer to another. It is an act of profound self-love. It is the ultimate declaration that your own peace is more important than being right, that your own freedom is more precious than your own pain. Let this be your final act of the day, a radical commitment to your own well-being. Put down the stone and walk freely, lightly, into the peaceful landscape of sleep. Part 7. The Moon That Cannot Be Stolen. Having released the heavy stone of resentment, we find ourselves in a state of lightness, a spaciousness where we can begin to discover what is truly valuable, what can never be taken from us. Our journey now leads us to a humble, dilapidated hut on a mountainside in Japan, the home of a beloved Zen poet and hermit named Ryokan. His story is not one of dramatic struggle or profound philosophical debate. It is a quiet, gentle tale, as soft as the moonlight it describes. It is a story about a
thief, a gift, and the nature of true, unshakable wealth. Ryokan was a monk who had left the structured world of the monastery to live a simpler, more solitary life. His home was a tiny, ramshackle hut, barely more than a shelter nestled among the pines. The roof leaked, the paper screens were torn, and the wind whistled through the cracks in the walls. He owned almost nothing. A single black robe, worn thin and patched in many places, a wooden bowl for his food, a few books of poetry, and a small pot for cooking. He lived by begging for his food in the nearby village, and the villagers loved him for his gentle spirit, his childlike innocence, and the beautiful, simple poems he would often write for them. He was known for his unconventional ways. He would spend his days playing with the village children, flying kites, and picking flowers. He would sometimes get so lost in watching the moon that he would forget to go begging for his dinner. He was a man who had completely let go of worldly ambition. He had no desire for wealth or fame or comfort. His joy was found in the simple, direct experience of life. The feeling of the sun on his face, the sound of the crickets at night, the taste of a wild berry. He was a man whose poverty was his richness. One evening, Ryokan returned to his hut after a long day of meditating in the forest. The night was exceptionally beautiful. A full moon, bright and luminous, hung in the dark velvet sky like a perfect silver lantern. Its light poured down over the mountainside, bathing everything in a soft, ethereal glow. The pine needles on the trees glittered as if dusted with frost, and the shadows were long and deep. Ryokan's heart was full of a quiet, profound joy. He felt a deep connection to the moon, as if it were an old and dear friend. As he approached his small hut, he noticed that the bamboo screen that served as his door was ajar. This was unusual, but he thought little of it. He stepped inside and immediately saw that he had a visitor. A man was crouched in the corner, rummaging through his meager belongings. He was a thief. The man had heard that a monk lived here and, assuming all monks had some hidden treasures or donations, had broken in to see what he could find.
The thief was becoming increasingly frustrated. He had searched everywhere, in the single small chest, under the sleeping mat, behind the small altar. There was nothing of any value at all. Just a worn-out robe, an empty bowl, and a few scrolls of paper. He was so engrossed in his fruitless search that he did not hear Ryokan enter. Ryokan stood in the doorway, watching the thief. He did not feel anger, he did not feel fear. He felt a wave of compassion. He saw not a criminal, but a man driven by poverty and desperation. He saw a man who was searching for happiness in the wrong place, a man who was blind to the real treasure that was all around him. Ryokan's heart went out to him. He thought, "This poor man has come all this way, on this cold night, and he has found nothing. I cannot let him leave empty-handed. It would be a shame for him to have made this long journey for nothing." Quietly, so as not to startle the thief, Ryokan began to slip out of his own robe, the only one he possessed. The thief, hearing the slight rustle of cloth, spun around, his eyes wide with panic. He was trapped. He saw the old monk standing there and braced himself for a shout, for a struggle, for the alarm to be raised. But Ryokan simply smiled, a gentle, disarming smile. He held out the robe in his hands. "You have come a long way to visit me," Ryokan said, his voice soft and kind. "And you have found nothing to take. Please, accept this as a gift. It is not much, but it is all I have." The thief was utterly bewildered. He had expected anger, violence, condemnation. He had never before encountered such a response. He stared at the old monk, at the offered robe, and then back at the monk's kind, open face. He was so stunned he could not speak. He hesitantly reached out and took the robe. It was still warm from Ryokan's body. "The night is cold," Ryokan continued, now standing in the moonlight in just his thin undergarments. "This will keep you warm on your way down the mountain." The thief, still speechless, clutched the robe, bowed awkwardly, and then turned and fled out of the hut, disappearing into the shadows of the pine trees. Ryokan was left alone in his empty, cold hut. He had given away his only possession of any practical value. He sat down on the edge of his wooden platform, the cool night air chilling his skin. He was poor, by any worldly standard, poorer now than he had been just a few moments before. But he did not feel poor. He did not feel loss. He looked out through the open doorway at the magnificent full moon, which was now shining directly into his hut, filling the small, empty space with its serene, silver light. A deep feeling of peace and contentment washed over him. He gazed at the moon, and a thought arose in him, a thought that he would later shape into one of his most famous poems. He sighed, a sound of perfect satisfaction, and said to himself, "The poor thief. I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." In that simple, profound statement lies the heart of Zen wisdom. Ryokan understood what true wealth is. The thief, in his desperation, was searching for things that could be owned, things that could be taken, things that could be bought and sold. A robe, a bowl, a piece of gold. He believed that happiness and security lay in the accumulation of these external objects. But Ryokan knew that all such things are impermanent. A robe can be stolen, a bowl can be broken, gold can be lost. To base one's happiness on things that can be taken away is to build one's house on sand. It is to live in a state of constant anxiety, a fear of loss. Ryokan's wealth was of a different kind. His treasures were the moon, scent of the pines, the kindness in his own heart, the stillness of his mind. These are things that cannot be possessed, and therefore they cannot be stolen.
You cannot put the moon in your pocket. You cannot lock up the silence of the forest in a treasure chest. You cannot steal a person's capacity for compassion. This is the unshakable wealth of the awakened mind. It is a richness that comes not from having, but from being. When Ryokan wished he could have given the thief the moon, he was expressing the deepest form of compassion. He was not just wishing the thief had a nice view. He was wishing that the thief could see the world as he saw it. He was wishing that the thief could awaken to the boundless, inherent treasure of his own awareness, of his own capacity to experience the beauty of the present moment. This is the greatest gift one can give to another. Not an object, but a change in perception. This story invites us to look at our own lives and ask ourselves, what is our moon? What are the things we value that cannot be measured in terms of money or status? Where do we find our true, unshakable wealth? Perhaps it is in the love of our family, the loyalty of a friend, the joy of a child's laughter. These are not possessions, but experiences, connections. Perhaps it is in our own creativity, the ability to make music or art, or a beautiful garden. Perhaps it is in our own inner peace, the quiet stillness we can access through meditation, the resilience that allows us to meet life's challenges with grace. So often we behave like the thief. We spend our lives rummaging through the world, trying to find things to make us happy and secure. We chase after a bigger house, a better job, more possessions, more approval from others. We believe that if we can just acquire enough of these things, we will finally be content. But it is a search that never ends. The more we get, the more we want, and the more we have, the more we have to fear losing. We become prisoners of our own possessions. Ryokan shows us another way, the way of simplicity, the way of finding richness in less. By letting go of his attachment to material things, he became free. His happiness was not dependent on anything outside of himself. It was weatherproof. It could not be stolen by a thief or diminished by poverty. He was, in his empty hut, the richest man in the world, because he possessed the one thing that mattered: a mind at peace with itself and in love with the simple, profound beauty of the present moment. As you lie here now, letting go of the day, allow the moonlight of this story to fill the room of your mind. Think about the things that have caused you stress or anxiety today. Were they related to things that can be lost? A worry about money? A frustration with a possession that broke? A fear of losing someone's approval? See these for what they are: the search for security in things that are, by their very nature, insecure. Now, turn your attention to your own moon. What was a moment of simple, unbuyable beauty you experienced today? Perhaps it was the warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of your morning coffee, a moment of genuine connection with another person, the beauty of the evening sky. Let yourself feel the richness of that simple experience. This is your true wealth. It is already here. You don't need to acquire it. You only need to notice it. Ryokan's final act of generosity was not just giving the robe. It was his complete lack of resentment. He did not see the thief as an enemy. He saw him as a fellow suffering being, lost in ignorance. This is the fruit of true inner wealth. When you know that nothing of real value can be taken from you, you are no longer afraid. And when you are no longer afraid, your heart can open in boundless compassion, even to those who would try to harm you. You can wish them the moon. Let this be your final meditation tonight. Let go of the thief's frantic search. Let go of the attachment to things that can be lost. Rest in the wealth that is already yours, the quiet peace of your own being, the gentle rhythm of your own breath, the vast, silent beauty of the night sky that holds both the moon and the stars. This is your kingdom. It is unshakable. It is infinite, and it cannot be stolen. Rest in your richness. Let us sit with Ryokan for a while longer in his moonlit hut and feel the deeper implications of his simple wish. The story resonates so powerfully because it speaks to a fundamental choice we all face in how we orient our lives. Do we live as the thief, or do we live as Ryokan? The thief's world is one of scarcity. He believes there is not enough, and that he must take from others to get what he needs. His mind is agitated, fearful, and constantly calculating. He lives in a state of separation, seeing others as obstacles or as resources to be exploited. His actions, driven by this mindset, only create more suffering for himself and for the world. Even if he had found a bag of gold in the ryokan's hut, would he have been happy? For a moment, perhaps. But soon, the fear of losing the gold, the anxiety of being caught, and the desire for even more gold would have arisen. His fundamental state of inner poverty would have remained unchanged. Ryokan's world, on the other hand, is one of abundance. He sees that the most precious things in life are freely available to everyone at all times. The moon does not charge a fee for its light. The wind does not demand payment for its song. The joy of a quiet mind is not a limited resource. Because he lives in this state of perceived abundance, he can be endlessly generous. Giving away his only robe was not a sacrifice for him. It was a natural expression of his inner richness. He had so much, he could not help but share. This is the paradox of the spiritual path. The less we cling to, the richer we become. The more we give, the more we have. This is not a call to abandon all our possessions and live in a hut, unless that is one's true path. For most of us, the lesson is an internal one. It is about shifting our inner center of gravity from the things we have to the person we are. It is about cultivating the ryokan mind in the midst of our ordinary lives. We can practice this every day. When we find ourselves caught in envy, wanting what someone else has, we can pause and connect with our own moon. We can take a moment to appreciate something beautiful in our own life that has nothing to do with money or status. This simple act shifts us from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. When we feel slighted, or that someone has taken something from us, our time, our energy, our credit for an idea, we can remember Ryokan's response. Instead of reacting with anger and a sense of victimhood, we can ask ourselves, what of real value has been lost? Our inner peace, our integrity, our capacity for kindness, are these still intact? If they are, then nothing of importance has been stolen. We can, from this place of inner security, respond to the situation with wisdom and compassion, rather than with reactivity. We can wish that the other person, who is clearly acting from a place of perceived lack, could find their own moon. Ryokan's story also teaches us about the nature of happiness. The thief was seeking a momentary pleasure, the thrill of acquisition. Ryokan was experiencing a deep and abiding joy, a state of being known in Zen as wabi-sabi. Wabi-sabi is a beauty of things imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is a beauty of things modest and humble. It is a beauty of things unconventional. Ryokan's leaky hut, his worn-out robe, his simple life, these were the embodiment of wabi-sabi. He found beauty not in perfection and polish, but in the authentic, unadorned reality of life. He did not need things to be grand or impressive to be happy. He found joy in the cracks, in the imperfections, in the simple, transient moments. This is a profound antidote to the modern world's relentless pursuit of perfection. We are constantly told that we need to perfect our bodies, our homes, our careers, our lives. This pursuit creates endless stress and a feeling of never being good enough. Ryokan's example invites us to relax, to find the beauty in our own imperfect, impermanent lives, to find joy not just in the mountaintop moments, but in the ordinary, humble valleys of our daily existence. The moon shines just as brightly on a messy kitchen as it does on a palace. Our capacity to appreciate it is the only thing that matters. As you lie here, letting the day dissolve, imagine the moonlight of Ryokan's story pouring into you. Let it illuminate the places in your heart that have been acting like the thief, the places of grasping, of envy, of fear. Let the light soften these contracted places. Let it remind you of the vast, abundant wealth that is your birthright. You are breathing. You are alive. You have the capacity to love, to feel, to be aware. This is a treasure beyond all measure. Feel the truth that your deepest happiness is not contingent on getting anything more than what you already have. It is contingent only on your ability to appreciate what is already here. The peace you are seeking is not in some future accomplishment. It is in the stillness of this very moment. The security you crave is not in a bank account. It is in the discovery that your true self, your awareness, cannot be threatened or diminished. It is the moon that cannot be stolen. Let go of the day's frantic search. Let go of the need to acquire, to achieve, to prove. Rest in the simple, profound richness of just being. You are Ryokan in his hut. The world, with its demands and its promises, is the thief who has come and gone. And you are left with the greatest treasure of all, the quiet, luminous peace of your own mind, shining brightly in the stillness of the night. The Farmer's Gate of Acceptance. Having discovered the unshakable wealth of a mind that clings to nothing, we now travel to a small, wind-swept farm on the northern frontier. Here, we will meet an old farmer who embodies a different kind of wealth, the profound peace that comes from accepting the unpredictable, ever-changing flow of life. This is a classic Taoist tale, often embraced by Zen, that teaches the wisdom of non-judgment. It is a story that invites us to look beyond the immediate labels of good luck and bad luck, and to rest in a much deeper, more spacious understanding of reality. Imagine a small village, nestled in a valley near the Great Wall that separates the empire from the wild lands of the north. The people here are hardy and pragmatic, their lives dictated by the turning of the seasons and the whims of the weather. Among them lives an old farmer. He is a man of few words, his face a roadmap of wrinkles carved by years of sun and wind, his hands gnarled and strong from a lifetime of working the earth. He lives with his only son in a modest farmhouse, and his most prized possession is a fine, strong horse. One day, the gate to the horse's enclosure is accidentally left unlatched. In the morning, the farmer and his son wake to find that the horse is gone. It has wandered off, likely into the vast, untamed lands beyond the border. The news spreads quickly through the small village. Soon, a group of neighbors comes to the farmer's house to offer their condolences. They gather around him, shaking their heads and making sympathetic noises. "Oh, what terrible luck," one of them says. "That horse was your greatest asset. How will you plow your fields? How will you travel? This is a disaster for you." They all murmur in agreement, their faces etched with pity. The old farmer listens to their commiserations calmly. He stands in his doorway, looking out toward the empty hills where his horse has vanished. He shows no sign of distress, no anger, no despair. When his neighbors have finished, he simply looks at them with his clear, steady eyes and says in his quiet, even voice, "We shall see." The neighbors are a bit taken aback by his strange, non-committal response. They expected tears or curses, not this placid acceptance. They shrug and go back to their own fields, whispering amongst themselves about the old man's odd detachment. The farmer and his son, meanwhile, simply go about their work, pulling the plow themselves, their days now longer and much harder. A few weeks pass. Then, one evening, just as the sun is setting, the villagers hear the sound of hoofbeats. They look up to see a remarkable sight. The old farmer's horse is returning, and it is not alone. It is leading a whole herd of wild horses, magnificent, untamed creatures from the northern plains, back to the farm. The farmer's horse, it seems, had not just wandered off. It had found a new family and brought them home. Suddenly, the old farmer is no longer a poor man with one lost horse. He is a rich man with a dozen. Once again, the neighbors come rushing to his house, but this time their faces are beaming with excitement and envy. "What incredible luck!" they exclaim, crowding around him and slapping him on the back. "You are a wealthy man now. This is the best thing that could have possibly happened. It's a blessing from the heavens." The old farmer listens to their congratulations with the same calm, unwavering expression he had before. He looks at the herd of horses, now milling about in his corral, their wild energy a stark contrast to the quiet of his farm. He does not smile or celebrate. He simply looks at his excited neighbors and says, his voice as steady as ever, "We shall see." The villagers are again bewildered. How could he not see this as a great fortune? The man was either a fool or a sage. They couldn't decide which. They leave, shaking their heads in wonder. The farmer's son, a strong and capable young man, is thrilled with their new fortune. He begins the difficult work of breaking in the wild horses, a dangerous but necessary task if they are to be of any use. A few days later, while trying to tame a particularly spirited stallion, the young man is thrown violently to the ground. There is a sickening crack. His leg is badly broken. The village healer does his best to set the bone, but it is a complex fracture. It is clear that the boy will be unable to walk properly for a very long time, and he may limp for the rest of his life. The news of the accident brings the neighbors back to the farm once more. Their faces are now masks of deep sympathy and concern. "Oh, what a terrible tragedy," they say, their voices hushed. "Your only son, crippled. It would have been better if you had never gotten those horses in the first place. This good fortune has turned into a curse. What awful, awful luck." The old farmer sits by his son's bedside, his expression as serene as the mountains in the distance. He listens to his neighbor's words of sorrow, and when they are finished, he looks at them and says, with no trace of bitterness or despair, the same 4 words: "We shall see." A year later, the emperor's army comes marching through the valley. A war has broken out with the northern tribes, and the army is conscripting every able-bodied young man in the region to fight. The recruiting officers go from house to house, taking the sons of the farmers' neighbors. It is a brutal war, and everyone knows that most of the young men who are taken will never return. The village is filled with the sounds of weeping mothers and grieving fathers. But when the officers come to the old farmer's house, they see his son with his badly healed leg and his permanent limp. He is declared unfit for military service. They pass him by and march on. The farmer's son is the only young man in the village who is spared. This story, in its simple, cyclical rhythm, is a profound teaching on the nature of reality. We live our lives in a constant state of judgment. We label every event that happens to us as either good or bad. A promotion at work is good. A car breaking down is bad. Finding a partner is good. A relationship ending is bad. Our emotional lives are a roller coaster, rising and falling with each new piece of perceived good or bad fortune. We are constantly grasping for the good and pushing away the bad, an exhausting struggle that is the source of most of our anxiety and suffering. The old farmer has stepped off this roller coaster. He lives behind what we might call the gate of acceptance. He understands a truth that is hidden from his neighbors. You can never know the full story of any event. What looks like a disaster in the moment might be the seed of a future blessing. What looks like a great fortune might be the hidden cause of a future tragedy. Life is a vast, interconnected web of causes and effects, and our limited human perspective can only ever see a tiny fraction of it. To judge an event based on its immediate appearance is like judging a whole movie based on a single frame. The farmer's refrain, "We shall see," is not a statement of pessimism or indifference. It is a statement of profound wisdom and humility. It is an acknowledgement that he does not have enough information to make a judgment. He is willing to remain in a state of not knowing, to let the story unfold without trying to label it prematurely. This is a state of immense inner peace. He is not buffeted by the winds of fortune. His emotional state is not dependent on external events. He is like a deep ocean whose surface may be rippled by waves, but whose depths remain calm and still. This does not mean we should be passive or fatalistic. The farmer and his son still worked hard. They pulled the plow themselves when the horse was gone. The son worked to tame the new horses. They did what needed to be done in each moment. The wisdom lies not in inaction, but in the inner attitude we hold towards the outcomes of our actions. We do our best, We plant the seeds, but we learn to let go of our attachment to how the harvest will turn out. We accept that there are countless forces at play in the universe that are beyond our control. As you lie here, preparing for sleep, reflect on the events of your own day through the lens of the farmer's wisdom. Perhaps there was a moment today that you labeled bad, a mistake you made, an unexpected problem, a difficult interaction. You may still be carrying the stress or frustration of it. Now, see if you can hold that event in your mind and gently whisper to it, "We shall see." Can you entertain the possibility that this seeming setback might have a hidden purpose? Perhaps the mistake will teach you a valuable lesson. Perhaps the problem will force you to develop a new skill or find a new, more creative solution. Perhaps the difficult interaction will lead to a deeper understanding in a relationship. You don't have to believe this will happen. You just have to be open to the possibility. This openness is what releases the tension. Now, think of a moment today that you labeled good, a piece of praise you received, a moment of success, a happy surprise. You may be clinging to this feeling, afraid it will fade. Now, hold this event in your mind and gently apply the same wisdom. We shall see. This is not to diminish your joy. It is to free your joy from the burden of expectation. A great success today can lead to greater pressure tomorrow. A new relationship can bring new challenges. By saying, "We shall see," you are not negating the goodness of the moment. You are simply acknowledging the impermanent, ever-changing nature of life. You can enjoy the pleasant wave without clinging to it, knowing that it, like all waves, will eventually recede. This non-clinging allows you to experience your joy more purely, without the subtle anxiety of trying to make it last forever. The farmer's gate of acceptance is always open to us. It is the choice, in any moment, to suspend our judgment and to rest in the vast, open space of "we shall see." It is the choice to trust the unfolding of life, even when we don't understand it. It is the ultimate letting go, not just of our burdens, but of our very need to control and define our experience. As you drift toward sleep, let go of the need to have your life all figured out. Let go of the labels of good day or bad day. Let the entire day, with all its ups and downs, its pleasures and its pains, be what it was: a series of events, a chapter in a much longer story whose ending you cannot know. Rest in that mystery. Find peace in not knowing. The farmer's peace was not in his possessions. The horse came and went and came again. His peace was in his perspective. It was a peace that could not be given and could not be taken away. Allow that same deep, accepting peace to be your companion tonight as you release the day and surrender to the quiet, unfolding mystery of sleep. Let us linger a little longer at the farmer's gate, for this simple story holds a key to releasing some of our deepest anxieties. The neighbors in the story represent the ordinary reactive mind. It is the part of us that is constantly analyzing, evaluating, and panicking. It operates on a very short timeline, seeing only the immediate foreground of life. This mind believes it is being helpful and practical, offering sympathy in bad times and congratulations in good. But in reality, it is a source of constant agitation. Its judgments create a turbulent inner world of highs and lows, of elation and despair. It is a mind that is always at the mercy of circumstance. The farmer represents the awakened mind, or what in Zen is called big mind. Big mind sees the larger picture. It understands that life is not a series of disconnected events, but a continuous, flowing process. It knows that every event is woven into a vast and intricate tapestry of cause and effect, a tapestry so complex that it is impossible to trace all the threads. The farmer's peace comes from his ability to rest in this larger perspective. He is not indifferent. We can be sure he felt a pang of loss when his horse was gone, and a surge of fear when his son was injured. The wisdom is not in feeling nothing, but in not getting lost in the feeling. It is the ability to feel the wave of emotion without letting it become the whole ocean. He allows the feeling to arise, and then he returns to his center, to the calm, spacious awareness that can hold all experiences without being defined by them. This perspective is incredibly freeing when we apply it to our worries about the future. So much of our anxiety comes from projecting a single event forward and imagining a chain of catastrophic consequences. We lose a job, and our mind immediately creates a future of poverty and homelessness. We make a mistake in a relationship, and we foresee a future of loneliness. We are, in these moments, behaving like the neighbors, declaring a single event to be a definitive disaster. The farmer's wisdom invites us to pause that frantic storytelling. When the anxious thought arises, "This is a disaster," we can gently counter it with, "We shall see." This simple phrase introduces a space of uncertainty, a crack of light in the solid wall of our fear. It reminds us that we do not know the future. Life is full of unexpected turns. The very event we are dreading might be the catalyst for a positive change we cannot yet imagine. The lost job might lead to a more fulfilling career. The relationship crisis might lead to a more honest and deeper connection. "We shall see" is a mantra of hope, a quiet rebellion against the tyranny of our own catastrophic thinking. It also transforms our relationship with the past. Many of us are haunted by past mistakes or regrets. We look back at a decision we made and label it as bad, and then we carry the weight of that judgment for years. We torture ourselves with if-onlys. If only I had taken that other job. If only I hadn't said that. The farmer's story shows us the futility of such thinking. How can we ever know for sure that a different path would have been better? The path not taken is a mystery. The path we are on, with all its struggles and seeming mistakes, has brought us to this very moment. It has shaped who we are. To look back with judgment is to reject the very journey that has created us. The farmer's wisdom allows us to look back with acceptance. We can see the events of our past not as a series of good or bad choices, but simply as the path that has been walked. We can let go of the need to label it, and instead focus our energy on the step we are taking right now. This practice of non-judgment cultivates a deep trust in life itself. It is a trust that is not based on a belief that everything will always turn out the way we want it to. It is a much deeper trust in our own ability to meet whatever comes. The farmer was not peaceful because he knew his son would be spared from the war. He was peaceful because he knew that, whatever happened, he would be able to meet it with the same calm, steady presence. This is the essence of spiritual maturity. It is shifting our focus from trying to control life to cultivating the inner resources to navigate it skillfully. It is building a boat that is seaworthy in any weather, rather than trying to control the ocean. As you settle into the stillness of your bed, let the farmer's quiet strength be your guide. Let go of the need to judge your day, your week, your life. Release the mental habit of sorting your experiences into neat piles of good and bad. Allow your life to be the complex, mysterious, and unfolding story that it is. If there is a situation in your life right now that is causing you pain or uncertainty, hold it gently in your awareness. Do not try to solve it or fix it. Simply surround it with the spacious wisdom of, "We shall see." Feel the subtle release that comes when you stop struggling against reality and instead allow it to be what it is, just for this moment. This acceptance is not resignation. It is the source of true power and peace. It is the gate through which you can enter a state of deep, untroubled rest, trusting that the great story of your life is unfolding exactly as it should. Part 9. The True Face in the Still Water. After learning to accept the unpredictable flow of life, our path now leads us back to the quiet grounds of a monastery, to a contemplative garden where a final, essential lesson awaits. This is a story about seeing ourselves, about discovering the profound peace that lies beneath the turbulent surface of our own minds. It is a journey from the agitated reflection of our daily thoughts to the clear, still image of our true nature. An image we can only see when we learn to be still. In a monastery known for its rigorous discipline, there was a young monk named Kenji. He was exceptionally sincere and dedicated. He rose earlier than anyone else. His chanting was the most resonant, and he sat in meditation for hours, his back as straight as a bamboo stalk. He had studied the teachings for years and could recite long passages from the sutras by heart. Yet, despite all his effort, or perhaps because of it, he was deeply troubled. Peace eluded him. The more he strived for a quiet mind, the more chaotic his mind seemed to become. His thoughts were like a swarm of angry bees. During meditation, instead of finding stillness, he would be assaulted by waves of self-doubt, memories of past failures, anxieties about the future, and a relentless inner critic that judged his every effort. He would try to force his mind into submission, to wrestle his thoughts into silence, but this only made the turmoil worse. It was like trying to flatten the waves of the ocean with a wooden plank. The struggle was exhausting, and it left him feeling like a failure. He would look at his master, an old, serene man named Ryuen, who seemed to embody a peace as deep and natural as the ancient stones in the monastery garden, and he would feel a profound sense of despair. Why was this peace so accessible to his master and so impossible for him? One afternoon, after a particularly stormy meditation session, Kenji could bear it no longer. He went to find Master Ryuen, his heart heavy with frustration. He found the old man sitting on the veranda of his small quarters, silently watching the clouds drift across the sky. Kenji bowed deeply, his forehead touching the worn wooden planks. "Master," he began, his voice tight with emotion, "I am lost. I follow all the instructions. I sit for hours. I watch my breath. I try to be mindful. But my mind is a raging storm. It is full of noise and confusion. The teachings speak of a clear, true nature, an original face. But all I see when I look inside is chaos. I feel I am getting nowhere. Please, can you show me my true face? Master Ryuen slowly turned his gaze from the clouds and looked at Kenji. His eyes were kind, holding no judgment, only a deep, quiet understanding. He did not offer a complex philosophical discourse or a new meditation technique. He simply stood up, his movements slow and deliberate, and said, "Come with me." Kenji followed his master out of the main temple grounds and along a winding stone path that led into a secluded part of the garden he had never explored before. The air here was cooler, shaded by ancient maple and ginkgo trees. The only sound was the crunch of their sandals on the gravel and the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. The walk was silent, and in that silence, Kenji's agitated mind began to quiet down, just a little, soothed by the master's calm presence and the beauty of the garden. Finally, they arrived at a small hidden pond. It was a place of immense natural beauty. Moss-covered rocks lined its edges, and a single graceful willow tree dipped its long branches into the water. In the depths, large, slow-moving koi swam like shadows of orange and gold. The pond was not perfectly still. A gentle breeze was blowing, creating a constant pattern of small, shimmering ripples across its surface. Master Ryuen stopped at the water's edge and motioned for Kenji to stand beside him. "Look down," the master said, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you see?" Kenji looked at the surface of the pond. He saw his own reflection, but it was not a clear image. The ripples from the wind distorted his face, breaking it into 1,000 wavering, fragmented pieces. One moment his eye would be here, the next his mouth would be over there. The reflection was agitated, unsteady, and chaotic. A wave of despair washed over Kenji. He pointed a trembling finger at the water. "Master, that is what I see inside myself. That is my mind. It is a broken, distorted mess. It is not clear. It is not peaceful. How can I ever find my true face in all of that?" His voice was filled with the pain of his long and fruitless struggle. He had finally found a perfect external image for his inner turmoil, and it only confirmed his sense of failure. Master Ryuen looked at Kenji's troubled face and then at the disturbed reflection in the water. He did not deny what Kenji was seeing. He simply said, "The wind is blowing." Then he sat down on a smooth, flat rock at the edge of the pond, folded his hands in his lap, and closed his eyes. He did not say another word. Kenji stood there, confused. The wind is blowing? What kind of teaching was that? He expected guidance, a method, an explanation. He waited for the master to say more, but there was only silence. Kenji's mind began to race again. What am I supposed to do? Should I try to block the wind? Should I find a more sheltered spot? Should I try to calm the water with my hands? His instinct, as always, was to do something, to fix the problem, to strive for a result. He looked at his master, sitting in perfect, unshakable stillness, and a different kind of understanding began to dawn. The master was not doing anything. He was just sitting. He was waiting. Hesitantly, Kenji sat down on the mossy ground near his master. He tried to imitate his posture, to let go of his need to solve the puzzle. His only instruction was to wait. So he waited. At first, it was agonizing. His mind was as restless as the water. He was impatient, he was bored, he was frustrated. He kept looking at the water, which was still rippling, and then at his master, who had not moved a muscle. But as the minutes stretched on, something began to shift.
The master's profound stillness was contagious. It was like a silent, powerful anchor that began to
steady Kenji's own restless energy. He began to notice the world around him more clearly. He heard the buzz of a dragonfly as it hovered over the water. He felt the warmth of the afternoon sun on his back. He saw the intricate patterns of the moss on the rock beside him. He was slowly, gently, being drawn out of the noisy drama of his own mind and into the simple, peaceful reality of the present moment. And then he noticed something else. The wind was beginning to die down. The gentle breeze that had been blowing all afternoon was becoming softer, more intermittent. The rustling of the leaves became a whisper, and then fell silent. And as the wind ceased, the ripples on the surface of the pond began to subside. The frantic, shimmering patterns gave way to a smoother, more coherent surface. The fragmented pieces of his reflection began to coalesce. Finally, the last ripple vanished. The surface of the pond became a perfect, flawless mirror. It was as still as glass, reflecting the deep blue of the sky, the graceful branches of the willow, and the serene face of the old master. Master Ryuen opened his eyes, as if he knew the exact moment the water had become still. He looked at Kenji and nodded gently toward the pond. "Look now," he said. Kenji leaned forward and looked at his reflection. He gasped. He saw his own face, but it was a face he had never seen before. It was perfectly clear, sharp, and detailed. But more than that, it was imbued with an incredible sense of peace. His reflection was held in the stillness of the water, and it seemed to be looking back at him from a place of deep, silent calm. He saw not just his features, but the vast, quiet sky that was also reflected in the water, as if his own face and the infinite sky were one and the same. In that moment, he understood. This was his true face. This was his original nature. It had been there all along. It was not something to be achieved or created. It was simply there, beneath the surface disturbances. The chaos he had been fighting was never his true nature. It was just the ripples caused by the winds of thought, feeling, and worldly events. His mistake had been in trying to fight the ripples. He had been stirring up the water with his own struggle. The only thing that was ever needed was to sit, to be patient, and to allow the winds to cease and the water to become still on its own. "The mind is just like this pond, Kenji," Master Ryuen said softly, his voice blending with the profound silence. "When the winds of thought and emotion blow, its surface is disturbed. You cannot force it to be still. The more you struggle, the more you churn the water. The practice is not to fight the ripples, but to sit patiently on the bank. You simply watch, you wait, and you trust. When you stop adding the energy of your own struggle, the winds will naturally die down. The mud will settle, and the natural clarity of your mind, your true face, will reveal itself." Kenji looked at his master, his eyes filled with tears of gratitude and understanding. The war within him was over. He had not won by fighting, but by surrendering. As you lie here now, preparing to enter the deep stillness of sleep, let your mind be this pond. The events of the day, the conversations, the worries, the tasks, the joys, have been the wind, creating ripples on its surface. Perhaps your mind feels agitated now, your reflection fragmented and unclear. Do not be discouraged. This is natural. You do not need to fight these thoughts or force them to go away. That will only create more turbulence. Your bed is the soft, mossy bank of the pond. Your only task is to rest here. Take your seat. Feel the solidness of the mattress beneath you, supporting you completely. Let go of the need to do anything. Simply allow yourself to be. Bring your attention to your breath, the gentle, rhythmic anchor that keeps you in the present moment. And wait. Watch the thoughts as they ripple across the surface of your mind. See them for what they are, temporary disturbances created by the passing winds of the day. They are not you. You are the deep, still water beneath. You are the vast, silent awareness that holds the ripples. Do not engage with them. Do not follow them. Just let them be. With each moment of quiet observation, you are allowing the wind to die down. With each gentle breath, you are allowing the water to settle. Feel the subtle shift as the ripples become smaller, less frequent. The spaces of silence between the thoughts grow longer. The surface of your mind is becoming smoother, clearer. The mud of the day's anxieties and concerns is slowly, gently settling to the bottom, leaving behind a beautiful, transparent clarity. Now you can look into the water and see your true face. It is a face of peace. It is a face of deep, untroubled rest. It is the serene, spacious awareness that was here before the day began and will be here long after its memories have faded. This is your true nature. It is always here, waiting for you, just beneath the surface. Rest in this stillness. Rest in this clarity, and let it carry you into a deep and peaceful sleep. Let us remain by this still pond for a while longer, for its wisdom is as deep as its waters. Kenji's breakthrough was not just an intellectual understanding, it was a felt experience, a profound shift in his entire way of being. He realized that for years he had been treating his mind as an enemy, a wild horse that needed to be broken. His meditation was a battleground. This adversarial relationship was the very source of his turmoil. The Master's teaching was a radical act of peacemaking. It taught him to befriend his own mind, to treat it not with aggression, but with a gentle, unwavering patience. This is a lesson we can all take to heart. How often do we get angry at our own minds? Why can't I stop worrying? Why am I so distracted? I should be more positive. This internal dialogue is a form of violence. It is us, standing at the edge of the pond, throwing stones into the water to try and stop the ripples. It is a futile and self-destructive act. The path to stillness begins with a ceasefire. It begins with the radical acceptance of the mind as it is, in this very moment, ripples and all. When we sit in meditation or lie down to sleep and the mind is busy, the practice is to simply acknowledge it without judgment. We can even say to ourselves, "The wind is blowing today." This simple phrase changes everything. It depersonalizes the thoughts. They are no longer my chaotic thoughts, a sign of my failure. They are just the wind, an impersonal, natural force that is passing through. This creates a space of compassionate detachment. We are no longer identified with the storm. We are the calm observer watching the weather. Master Ryuen's instruction to wait is also profoundly important. In our fast-paced, goal-oriented world, we are conditioned to believe that effort and action are the keys to everything. We want instant results. The idea of simply waiting, of allowing a process to unfold in its own time, is countercultural and can feel deeply uncomfortable. But the mind's stillness cannot be forced on our timetable. It has its own natural rhythm. Just as we cannot command a seed to sprout faster, we cannot command the mind to become quiet. We can only create the right conditions, the rich soil of acceptance, the gentle water of our breath, the warm sun of our patient awareness. And then we must wait. We must trust the process. This waiting is not a passive, dull state. It is an active, vibrant stillness. It is the alert, patient waiting of a cat watching a mouse hole. It is a state of relaxed readiness. While waiting for the pond to still, Kenji began to notice the world around him with a new clarity. This is what happens when we stop struggling with our own minds. The energy that was consumed by the internal battle is liberated, and it becomes available to experience the richness of the present moment. We start to notice the subtle sensations in our bodies, the play of light in the room, the distant sounds of the night. Our world, which had shrunk to the size of our own mental drama, expands to include the vast, beautiful reality that is always here, waiting for our attention. The clear reflection Kenji saw was not just of his own face, but of the sky as well. This is a crucial part of the metaphor. Our true nature, our original face, is not just a small, personal self. It is as vast, open, and boundless as the sky. The thoughts, feelings, and stories that ripple across our minds are like clouds. They pass through the sky. They may temporarily obscure its blue clarity, but they can never stain or harm the sky itself. Our true nature is this sky-like awareness. It is the vast, silent space in which all of our experiences happen. To realize this is to find a freedom that is unshakable. We are no longer a fragile, fragmented reflection tossed about by every breeze. We are the vast, still water and the infinite sky, fundamentally peaceful and whole. As you lie here, feel yourself as this pond. Your body is the earth that holds the water, solid and relaxed. Your mind is the water itself, and your true nature is the deep, silent stillness at the bottom of the pond and the vast, open sky reflected on its surface. The day's winds may still be whispering, creating a few last gentle ripples. Let them be. They are part of the landscape. Do not wish them away. Simply rest in the knowledge that they are surface phenomena. They cannot touch the deep, quiet peace that is your essence. Feel the mud of your worries and preoccupations settling. Feel the water of your mind becoming clearer, more transparent. And in this growing clarity, see the reflection of your own true face. It is not a face of striving or anxiety. It is a face of profound rest. It is serene, content, and complete. There is nothing to fix, nothing to achieve. You are already whole. You are already home. Rest in this knowing. Let this clear, peaceful reflection be the last image you hold as you drift effortlessly into the deep, restorative ocean of sleep. the sound of a silent heart. We have journeyed far tonight, from the universal heart of shared sorrow to the quiet acceptance of the farmer's gate. We have learned to put down our heavy stones and to see our true face in the still water. Now, as we arrive at the threshold of sleep, we come to our final story, which is not a story at all, but a question. It is perhaps the most famous Zen koan, a riddle that is not meant to be solved by the intellect, but to be experienced by the heart. It is a gentle, final tool designed to dissolve the last vestiges of the thinking mind and guide you into the vast, silent peace from which all true rest is born. It is the question, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Imagine yourself once more in a quiet Zen monastery. It is late at night. The moon, a thin silver crescent, hangs in an inky black sky studded with 1,000,000 distant stars. A profound silence has settled over the world. The day's activities have ceased, the monks are in their beds, and the only movement is the slow, silent march of the constellations across the heavens. You are sitting in the meditation hall, the zendo. The large, dark room is empty except for you. A single candle flickers on the altar, its small flame casting long, dancing shadows on the dark wooden walls. The air is cool and smells of sandalwood incense and old, polished wood. You are not here to strive or to practice. You are simply here to rest in the deep, velvet silence of the night. You have been brought here by a great Zen master, Hakuin, a man known for his fierce compassion and his powerful, unconventional teaching methods. He has guided you through all the stories we have shared tonight. He has walked with you, sat with you, and shown you the path. Now, he offers you this final, parting gift. He leans close, his presence both powerful and gentle, and he whispers this question into the quiet space of your mind. 2 hands clap, and there is a sound. What is the sound of 1 hand? He does not wait for an answer. He simply offers the question like a seed, and then he is gone, leaving you alone with the flickering candle and the immense silence. The question hangs in the air, not as a problem to be solved, but as a presence, a quiet hum in the stillness. What is the sound of 1 hand clapping? Your first instinct, the habit of a lifetime, is to think. The logical mind, the part of you that solves problems and makes plans, immediately engages. It turns the question over and over. 1 hand clapping? It's a paradox, a contradiction. 1 hand cannot clap, therefore there is no sound. The sound is silence. This seems like a clever, logical answer, but as you offer it up to the quiet of the zendo, it feels hollow, thin, and unsatisfying. It is an idea about silence, not the experience of silence itself. The master was not asking for a clever definition. The koan is not a riddle to be solved with words. It is a doorway. So you let go of that first, easy answer. The question remains. What is the sound of 1 hand? The mind tries again. Perhaps it's a metaphor. The 2 hands could be duality, good and bad, self and other, life and death. The 1 hand, then, would be non-duality, the unity that lies beyond all opposites. The sound would be the experience of that unity, the sound of enlightenment. This is a beautiful, philosophical concept. It is a fine piece of intellectual embroidery.
but it too is just a thought, a map of the territory, not the territory itself. You are still in your head, thinking about the experience, not having it. The master's question was not an invitation to a seminar. It was an invitation to a direct, intimate encounter with reality. You realize that the thinking mind, with its logic and its concepts, is the wrong tool for this task. It is like trying to taste the sweetness of a mango by reading a description of it. The koan is designed to frustrate the intellect, to show it its own limits. It is a gentle way of helping the thinking mind to give up, to surrender its constant need to analyze, categorize, and understand. It is an invitation to stop thinking and to start listening. So you stop trying to figure it out. You let go of the search for an answer. You simply sit with the question itself. You allow the words to resonate within you without trying to grasp their meaning. What is the sound of one hand? You turn your attention away from your thoughts and toward your senses. You begin to listen, not with your ears alone, but with your whole being. You listen to the silence of the zendo. At first, it seems absolute, but as you listen more
Deeply, you begin to hear the subtle symphony within the silence. You hear the faint, almost imperceptible hiss of the candle flame. You hear the quiet, rhythmic creak of the old wooden beams of the hall as they cool in the night air. You hear the sound of your own breath, a soft, gentle tide flowing in and out. You hear the distant, muffled beat of your own heart, a steady, faithful drum in the center of your being. These are sounds, but are they the sound of one hand? The question continues to echo, not as a problem, but as a guide, pointing your attention ever deeper inward. The koan is not about finding a new, special sound. It is about discovering the soundless sound that is always already here, beneath the threshold of our normal, distracted hearing. It is the background hum of existence itself. It is the sound of life, not separate from you, but flowing through you. The two hands clapping represent the world of separation, of cause and effect, of subject and object. A hand hits another hand, and a sound is produced. This is the world our thinking mind understands. The one hand is the world of unity, of wholeness, where there is no separation between the listener and the sound, between you and the universe. What is the sound of your own being before you have a thought about it? What is the sound of the silent awareness that is reading these words right now? This is not something you can find by searching for it. The search itself creates a separation, a me who is searching for it. The sound of one hand is discovered only when the search stops, when the seeker disappears. As you lie here in your bed, let go of all effort. Let go of the monk in the zendo. Let go of the master. Let go of the koan itself. Let there be only listening. Listen to the quiet of your room. Listen to the gentle whisper of your own breath. Feel the silent, living presence of your own body. You are not trying to hear anything. You are simply becoming an open, receptive space of awareness. The sound of one hand is the sound of a silent heart. It is the peace that is present when the mind is no longer at war with itself. It is the clarity that is revealed when the waters of thought have become still. It is the love that flows naturally when we are no longer separated from the world by our judgments and our fears. It is the sound of your own true nature. This sound has no beginning and no end. It was here before you were born, and it will be here after you are gone. It is the deep, resonant silence out of which all sounds arise, and into which they all return. It is the ultimate ground of being. To hear it is to come home. Do not try to grasp this with your mind. Let these words be like a lullaby, gently rocking your analytical mind to sleep. The purpose of this koan, as you drift into slumber, is not to keep you awake with a puzzle, but to guide you into a state of profound, thought-free rest. It is a final, gentle sweeping of the room of your mind,
clearing out any last remnants of the day's thinking. The sound of one hand is the feeling of the pillow beneath your head. It is the weight of the blanket upon your body. It is the darkness behind your closed eyelids. It is the simple, profound, and miraculous fact of your own existence, right here, right now. There is nothing to understand. There is only this. Let the question dissolve. Let the search for an answer fade away. And in the space that is left, there is only a vast, peaceful, and silent listening. This is the sound of one hand. It is the sound of deep, restorative sleep. It is the sound of a heart at peace. Allow this silent sound to be the last thing you are aware of as you let go completely and drift into the boundless, silent ocean of the night. Rest now. Your journey is complete. The sound of one hand is here. Let us linger in this silent zendo, for the gift of this koan is not meant to be opened quickly. Its layers unfold in the stillness. The master, Hakuin, who revitalized the use of koans in his tradition, knew that the human mind is a relentless pattern maker. It seeks to connect dots, to find causes, to create coherent stories. This is a wonderful tool for navigating the practical world, but it becomes a prison when we try to apply it to the deeper mysteries of existence. The koan is a gentle, skillful disruption of this pattern-making machine. It presents the mind with a task it cannot perform, a knot it cannot untie. And in the face of this impossible task, the mind, if we allow it, can finally relax. It can let go of its role as the master of the universe and become what it truly is, a servant of a deeper awareness. Imagine the mind as a busy, well-meaning servant. All day long it has been running around, carrying messages, filing information, solving problems. It is a loyal servant, but it is tired. Now, at the end of the day, you give it one final task. Go and fetch me the sound of one hand clapping. The servant, ever diligent, rushes off to try and fulfill the request. It searches in the library of logic, in the archives of memory, in the workshop of imagination. But it finds nothing. It comes back, empty-handed and exhausted. And in that moment of its admitted failure, it can finally rest. The master of the house, who is your silent, witnessing presence, can now enjoy the peace and quiet. The koan is a loving act of sending the servant on an impossible errand so that you can have some peace. This peace is not an emptiness, but a fullness. When the noise of our internal chatter subsides, we begin to perceive the world with a startling freshness and intimacy. The sound of one hand is not an abstract concept. It is intensely, vividly real. It is the direct, unmediated experience of reality before we have named it or judged it.
It is the taste of water when you are thirsty. It is the feeling of cool air on your skin. It is the simple, profound isness of things. The Japanese have a word, mono no aware, which is sometimes translated as the pathos of things. It refers to a gentle sadness or wistfulness at the transient nature of life. But it is also a deep, quiet appreciation for the beauty of that transience. The sound of one hand is connected to this feeling. It is the sound of a single cherry blossom falling in a silent temple garden. It is the sound of the steam rising from a cup of tea. It is the sound of a single moment, perfect and complete in itself, arising and passing away. To hear this sound is to be fully present to the bittersweet beauty of our impermanent lives. It is to find a deep and abiding peace not in spite of change, but because of it. Let's consider the two hands from another angle. The world of two hands is the world of effort, of doing. We push, we pull, we strive, we achieve. This is the world of our daily lives, and it is necessary. But it is also exhausting. The world of one hand is the world of being, of non-doing, or wu wei in Taoism. It is a state of effortless action, where we move in harmony with the natural flow of life, rather than struggling against it. The sound of one hand is the sound of this effortless flow. It is the sound of a skilled calligrapher's brush moving across the paper, not with force, but with a relaxed, focused grace. It is the sound of a boat drifting with the current, its sails perfectly aligned with the wind. As you lie here, you are invited to enter this state of non-doing. Sleep is the ultimate act of wu wei. You cannot force yourself to sleep. You cannot achieve sleep through effort. In fact, the more you try, the more elusive it becomes. Sleep is a surrender. It is an act of trust. It is the letting go of the two-handed world of control and allowing the one-handed world of being to take over. The sound of one hand is the gentle, irresistible current that is pulling you now toward the shores of sleep. You do not need to swim. You only need to let go and allow yourself to be carried. This koan is Hakuin's great gift of compassion. He saw how people tortured themselves with their own minds, how they were trapped in endless loops of anxiety and self-criticism. He knew that you could not argue a person out of this state. You could not offer them a philosophy that would fix it. The thinking mind is the source of the problem. It cannot also be the solution. So he offered a different path. He offered a way to bypass the intellect altogether. The koan is a medicine that is not meant to be swallowed, but to be absorbed. It works on a level deeper than thought. It is a vibrational key that can unlock the cage of the conceptual mind and set our awareness free. Feel this gentle unlocking happening now. Let the question, "What is the sound of one hand?" be a soft, resonant hum that vibrates through your entire being. Let it loosen the tight knots of worry in your shoulders. Let it smooth the furrowed brow of concentration. Let it quiet the frantic beating of a stressed heart. It is not asking you for anything. It is giving you a gift. The gift of permission to stop. To stop thinking. To stop trying. To stop being a someone who has to figure everything out. In this final, quiet space, you can simply be. You are not a name, not a profession, not a collection of memories. You are a silent, listening presence. You are the zendo in the deep of night. You are the flickering candle flame. You are the vast, star-filled sky. And the sound that fills this immense space, the sound that is both silence and everything, is the sound of one hand. It is the sound of your own peaceful, sleeping heart. It is the sound of the universe breathing you. There is no separation. There is only this one, seamless, silent, and profoundly peaceful reality. Let it embrace you. Let it hold you. Let it be your final, gentle passage into a night of deep and dreamless rest.